past your spotlights and your light bars. And your...
Of course. How many light bars can you get? I always laugh at this. It's like, guys, what are you looking for? Friggin' Perth? Nissan Patrol. I don't think it ever went to wind tunnel, did it? But anyway, might digress. But
how can you put a skip bin in a wind tunnel? But,
you know, it's ethical killing of the diesel bug. I've found there's a lot of stuff on the shelf you might as well just piss in your own tank. It's that bad.
Hey guys, Rob here from Hunt Shoot Offroad, mad keen hunter and shooter since forever and off-roader by necessity. Hunt Shoot Offroad podcast is all about educating like-minded hunters, shooters, off-roaders, campers and fishermen on how to improve their experiences, save money and time, a bit of DIY and all about getting out there more often. You should join us in our journey because people don't rise to their expectations, they fall to their level of training. Welcome to episode 12 of the Hunt Shoot Offroad podcast. Today we have a great yarn with Dan Gough. We chat ultimately about diesel injector and pump care, but we also cover how to prevent the diesel bug, keeping water out of your fuel, diesel pre-filters, fuel treatments, and the best fuels you can get. If you have a diesel, there will be something in this for you. Dan Gough is the owner of Valhalla Industries, a professional automotive diagnostics training solution since 2013, and owner of Redline, EFI and performance since 2000. I had a good mate attend his training and he said that we had to interview him. He wasn't wrong, he was very knowledgeable and very funny, and I had a great chat with him. Make sure you check the show notes or description for topic timestamps and links to discussed items and websites. If the episode is too long for one sitting, don't forget you can add the video to your watch later and it will remember where you're up to and resume playing from where you left off. You can also then watch segments at your leisure. Another feature you can utilize is to increase the playback speed, which is found in the settings of YouTube. Alternatively, on your iPhone or Android, you can download a podcatcher app such as Pocket Cast. That's the one that I use, and you can subscribe to the podcast version of the show over there and download it on your Wi-Fi and then listen to it offline. Podcatchers also have the ability to increase the playback speed. I typically listen to most shows at 1.3 times faster. I like to use the podcast version of shows for listening on long drives so you can smash out the Ks on the way to your next hunt. This podcast is brought to you by Olight Australia. Use the link in the show notes or the description and apply the coupon code HSO10 and receive a HSO exclusive discount of 10% on all eligible purchases for a limited time. Okay guys, welcome to Forby Friday, and today we've got Dan Gough from Valhalla Industries, and we're going to talk today about how to protect your diesel engine. And I've got 4 things that I think anyone should do to their car, and that is synthetic oil, oil catch can, diesel pre-filter, and good clean air through a snorkel. And today we're going to talk about how to protect your diesel injectors and all that sort of stuff like that, and maybe a few other topics. And Dan, tell us about yourself, where you're from, and what you do.
Thanks, Rob. I own Redline EFI on the Gold Coast, automotive. I used to do a lot of performance stuff. Obviously, we've sort of moved away from that now, but I also own Valhalla Industries. That's our training company. So teach through BAPCOR, which is Burson. Everyone knows as Burson through Australia, but teach all over Australia, New Zealand, parts of the States. So that's all to do with different kinds of courses, but different things that we teach, say engine management, common rail diesel, anything to do with diagnostics, basically we do, and that's for the trade, for our industry. So it's pretty popular, yeah.
Yep. So you mostly deal with fully qualified mechanics and that.
Yeah, and apprentices too. We don't specialise with apprentices. We don't do that sort of stuff. But I mean, a lot of apprentices come to the courses and they get a lot more out of it than what they wouldn't learn at TAFE or through their RTO. Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. Now I got onto you because one of my mates did the course.
Yep. And
he's like, man, there's this wild cat I just met. His name's Dan Gough, and he's a shooter as well, which is awesome. So,
yep.
You know, a bit of cross-pollination there. So
that's it, yeah. I mean,
and you do some courses for the shooting as well, don't you?
So I'm a weapons instructor. So, yeah, I was out on the range yesterday, which was great fun. But it's good to get out and do a hunt or, you know, just to shoot. I find that's my zen place, you know. That's where I like to relax, basically. But I've been doing it for a long time, ex-army. Just did my CASA earlier this year, yeah. So
yeah, that's shooting out of choppers,
out of helicopters,
you know,
that's where Cat D for feral pest management.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's really interesting. It's a bit
You
going
might have to
on.
give me the hookup. That's,
It's good, man. It's
I'd
really
love
good.
to get into that.
Yeah.
That's why I got it. One of my series is Road to Cat D.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Okay.
long road. I think I'll probably be dead before I finish it.
There's ways into it. Yeah.
All right, so let's I guess get stuck into it. I've got my own opinions that I've built up from my own research, and I've got a good mate he's a diesel mechanic at the Brisbane City Bus. I wanted to interview him, and he got too shy, didn't want to get in front of the camera. So,
pussy.
So let's from what I understand, there's two things that we need to do to protect our diesel engine. One is water is the death of injectors, and the other thing is there's the diesel bug that gets in and rots your fuel.
Well, with fuel,
bit of a sludge in there.
Yeah.
So two different things there going on at once, and one's probably worse than the other.
No, that one's part of the other as well. I mean, water in your fuel. I mean, you get water in diesel. Obviously, it's shocking because it has no lubricating properties. So if we get water through our filtration system, which happens a lot with factory stuff, goes into our suction control valve, into a high pressure pump, then through into the rails. So before it even gets to the injectors, you're destroying the pump. There's no lubrication properties in it.
Yeah,
it's a horrible thing for it. It's the biggest cause of pump and injector failures in diesels, common rail or not common rail.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about. I guess where would you start with that process? So,
Mate, filtration.
filtration. That's another one thing.
Well, no, probably not the first thing. The first thing I'd say is make sure that you're using a reputable fuel source. This is a bone of contention with a lot of people, I know, but they say who's got the best fuel. I can only comment on what I've tested on the dyno, what we've checked through our business. Obviously, we see a lot of this sort of stuff coming through from problems with water and associated, and where people get their fuel from. Ask a mechanic. Ask a diesel mechanic or a motor mechanic that does a lot of this sort of stuff, and you'll say where is those problems associated and where they're not. And I can put my hand on my heart and actually say that there's two reputable fuel companies that I use. They're all using the same fuel, let's face it. It's what they put in it and how they process it, and filtration that. But our point that we go for is we like BP.
Yep.
Simple as that. We'd say, look, use the BP Ultimate, you can't go wrong. We don't have problems with it. I got diesels myself.
Yep.
I found with other brands, I'm not allowed to. I can say what's good, but I'm not allowed to say what's bad. I'll get
That's
screwed.
right. Yeah, that's right.
But some of the other brands that are big names and that too, I've had, and other guys will tell you the same. They get a rattle, get a bit of diesel rattle happening with particular fuels. Another big one behind the BP, I have no problem with it as well, but I do back-to-back testing for emissions and for power and obviously drivability. But we're also going to have a look at things like what's the range on that tank exactly. If I reset that and say how many Ks am I going to get out of this tank versus how many am I going to get out of this tank, you have to do the same drive. You can't just go, I'm going to do 1,000 Ks and then do it stop-start.
Yeah,
and then do it on the
60k
highway.
average,
Exactly.
one's an 80k average. Yeah,
I say to people, do the same trip every day that you're going to do until that tank's empty, and well, close enough to it, and measure your fuel to a certain point. And that's a good way to do it. It's a great way to do it. And I found that the BP ran better. It ran cleaner. Look, put it on the dyno. We tested 4 different kinds of fuels. We have talked about this before. I talk about in my training course. I say to people, there is very distinct kinds of diesel on the market. And people go, diesel's diesel. That's bullshit. All right?
Yeah, you said this, yep.
Diesel, you've got your fossil diesel, your dirty ass, stinky yellow diesel. Diesel's diesel. Put it in your fingers. It's greasy. It's oily.
And yellow?
And yellow.
Yeah.
That's what it should be. Right? And that, to me, that's your real diesel. That's, you don't have an octane rating in diesel. You have a cetane rating. So, so that's our flash point, if you like. All right, we can't change that. It's set by Australian standards. It was 2000, now it's 2019. It's only just gone through last year of what those standards are for what additives we can put in fuel, what octane or cetane rating you like, that's in there. But that's all set. And quite frankly, fuel manufacturers aren't going to go spend a lot of money putting more stuff in if they can pass the bare ass minimum.
Yeah,
right? And that's what they need to do.
Well, it's interesting. So my mate's take on where to get good fuel from, he just goes, go to truck stops. You want places that have high volume turnover. And his thing, he said that with those fuels, if they supply you bad fuel and that truck ends up on the side of the road because of bad fuel, they can be liable for all the goods that are in the vehicle.
Yep, if you can prove it.
If they can prove it. So he said that they do have, if they want to run a good service station, they have to be supplying good fuel.
Oh, absolutely.
And I thought that was a pretty reasonable statement. But, for us guys in the city, of course, it's not always possible to go to a...
Well, this was part of that standards, though. So last year when these standards came in, all tanks have to be lined. All tanks have to have extra filtration. All tanks have to have all of these separate things that have to go on.
Standards to meet, yeah.
Absolutely. They're the standards they have to meet. But in saying that, like Bulk Fuels Australia, BFA, their service stations have to meet their own criteria, which are above and beyond.
Yeah,
they run a separate, 5 micron filter through their fuel before it even gets through to your pump. So they're pretty onto it. You'll see some places they go, oh, it's a little bit dearer in fuel, but, and when you said, go to truck stops, that can be iffy too. Trucks don't give a rat's ass. They care about price. You're pumping through high-speed fuel on a truck pump.
Yeah.
They go, oh, that's truck diesel. Diesel's diesel, right? You don't have a truck diesel.
Well, I think there's one of the Gold Coast. I think it might be the BP there. Could be wrong. And there's a different price on the truck diesel. And I went in there and I was filling up and I looked across. I was like, it was like 4 cents cheaper.
It doesn't have any additive for what we're looking at for your BP.
Yeah, okay.
What's your base one? Right. So if you're the dirt buster, which is, let's face it, it's a crock of shit. Dirt. I got dirt in my fuel. How did you get dirt in it? All right. It's got nothing to do with dirt. The fact is, they say that this will clean your fuel in 2 tanks based on a 850k range on a tank.
Yeah, okay.
Horseshit. All right. It doesn't bust dirt. All right. We'll go through that in a minute, but let's face it, it's cleaner fuel. But the additives they put in there, they've got anti-foaming, anti-caking, they've got cleaners, they've got cetane enhancers, they've got all this stuff in there. And what the idea is, it's not to bust dirt, it's to clean out the tip and of the injector, to keep that shit out of there. If anything builds up, we all get paraffin wax in fuel in Australia.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Petrol, diesel, it makes no difference because it's coming from the same place, crude, right? We don't have a winter and a summer fuel per se. But down south, they do get alpine fuel.
Okay.
Try and start your four-wheel drive on a non-winter fuel after it's been there for 3 days in the snow. It's not going to work.
Well, it's funny you said that because, in the States, in Canada and that, they have, winter tyres and summer tyres.
Absolutely. You got a winter car and a summer car.
We know nothing about that, that's, and then the same with, the quad bikes and that, so they fill the tank up, put an additive, seal it,
Absolutely.
that's it, don't touch it for the next 6 months.
Yeah. But
no one here worries about that stuff.
I had a car in 2 weeks ago from a customer come through RACQ, we're RACQ Inspections and Repair Centre down Burleigh, and they were from the Snowy Mountains. And because the corona's hit, they got no work. The whole season turned to shit.
Yeah.
And all their stuff is stuck there. And they're just like, oh God, I hope it's going to be okay when it all falls out and everything too. All their vehicles are stuck there.
Yeah.
They brought their Forby down. They said they use an Alpine fuel down there. Because, let's face it, they don't want to get in that thing and not start. So they can get stuck in pretty bad places, I guess, too.
Yeah.
But yeah, they do have it down there. Here, we're never going to see it. The biggest problem we've got is that diesel you see is good. All right, there's nothing wrong with that diesel.
Yeah.
Okay, then you get the next one, and I show guys the samples when I do the training course. You've all probably seen it yourself. So you get the yellow diesel.
Yep.
Looks
so
like
that's
diesel.
a good diesel.
Good diesel.
Yep. Okay,
Looks like diesel. Smells like diesel. It's diesel.
Feels like diesel.
Feels like diesel. Now you got to remember, it was 11 years ago or something. They made the law with the parts, so we'd have 15 parts per million now maximum sulfur content in our fuel.
Yeah. Okay.
So we've taken away the lubrication property of old diesel. You didn't know that?
No, I didn't
know
that.
once we take all that sulfur-free diesel. Do you remember diesel? It wasn't called Dieselgate. What was it called? Whatever. The BP was part of it and everything, and they sold all that really low sulfur diesel. And everyone had old Hilux and everything. Pumps pissing out fluid.
Is that when it was busting fuel lines? My dad.
All the seals shit themselves.
Yeah, my dad dumped a full tank of fuel on the ground, but the server that had to pay for it all.
No, it wasn't just the server; it was the whole company. So,
someone paid for it. It wasn't Dad.
BP was big on that, and they rightfully so. They didn't allow that time to change over to Vitron seals. Yeah, and all the seals had to be changed to low sulfur. I mean, low sulfur is good for environment. It's good for freaking dolphins and the reef and bullshit. But it's like not that you know what I mean. But it's like it's not good for the vehicle at all.
Yeah.
It was never a good idea. But then they've had to add lubricants into the fuel now because they've taken out sulfur. So that's why it's costing more to do that sort of stuff as well. You can only have 15 parts per million maximum now with sulfur content. So these are the problems that we face. But I mean, they don't really give a shit about four-wheel drive enthusiasts. They don't.
No.
What they look at, what they care
well,
about.
all they care about was what, like Euro 5?
Euro 5, Euro
that's
6s. We're pushing up and up and up with our emission
Yeah.
standards, and that is cars. All right, we're a 2% market, for the rest of the world. You look at Euro,
Which is interesting because we also control what the decisions they make with Land Cruisers and all that sort of stuff like that as well.
Well, we have more of them than anyone else too.
But
Us and the other guys, the Kiwis, but we don't talk.
Well, and the South Africans.
Oh yeah, do we count them? Oh, okay.
I think. Well, they have some market say, I think, as well. Yeah.
I think they build some.
Yeah.
But yeah, the biggest thing with the fuel is you've got that fuel, and then the next fuel you look at, it's got a blue or a green tinge.
Yep.
You've seen that?
I definitely have seen the green tinge. Yeah.
That's our synthetic diesel.
Ooh.
Yeah, so just like unleaded petrol, it's a blend. There is ethanol, dichromosine, and all this other crap that they put in there. And then
Now, do they have to advertise that on the pump?
No, you don't.
So you won't know until you start,
That's right.
until you spill a bit on the ground or
But
something.
let's face it, we've got
Not that you should do
to
that.
have a fuel that actually burns with the same characteristics and has
Yep.
the same BTU, British thermal units, or energy per
Litre or whatever. Yeah.
cc's, whatever they want to put it to. But it's also going to have the lubricating properties. So what we can talk probably about later is synthetic oils and mineral oils. Same with the fuel. This is where we're heading with the fuel. They're trying to get away from, naturally sourced fuel. And let's face it, if you could make a fuel that burns more efficiently, burns cleaner, and has good lubricating properties, why wouldn't you use it?
Well,
as
that's
long as it works with your vehicle, right?
Yeah.
And not everyone's going to be happy about that because it's like, I'm not going to use that shit. That's cool, but just be aware that is something that we're probably going to be working towards a lot more. Our fuel resources in Australia have dropped down by 35%. We're now more reliant on, I think 85, 90% of our fuel comes in from Asia or the Middle East via Asia through their refineries and stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of it through Singapore. Everyone thinks it's all Singapore, but it's not. We do get some through China, believe it or not, and some other countries. Yeah, not real happy about that, but this is where we're at. All that comes over in millions and millions of gallons at a time. When it's brought here, then it's separated, and then each individual manufacturer will have their own specific blends and stuff, but it's all basically the same shit.
Yeah, and of course, when you've got those, the CC to abide by, and,
Yep.
they can't afford to
But
deviate too much.
Base oil and base fuel is exactly the same product.
Yeah.
So
They've just got their special herbs and spices in
exactly.
there. Yeah,
but when you look at a fuel, and as I say to everyone, one thing I love about the training that I do and the courses that I do, everything I teach is based on knowledge that I have. I think we've got over 800 people on our Facebook page for diagnostic training courses and stuff.
Yeah, and we'll put a link to that.
If you're a mechanic, you can go on there.
Oh, just mechanics.
It's not for DIY. Sorry, guys, but it's these are pretty techie shit with a lot of.
Yeah, that's right.
There's a lot of good stuff in there, but I mean, a lot of it would probably go over your head too. But I mean, we do have another page that we can refer this sort of stuff to as well, and we can put a link to that. But basically, what we talk about with a lot of senior techs all over Australia, New Zealand, the States, is what they find, where the problems they have. But then when I said, there's 3 fuels on the market, and I explained this, and then show them the sand fuel, the next fuel, the synthetic blends that they have. They can use a certain amount of ethanol in them, in diesel as well.
Yeah,
but they've got to add more lubricating qualities for it as well. I'm not a fan, but it'll get better over time. But then you've got the real scary shit at the bottom end of the market.
Yeah,
it's clear.
Yeah, you said this. I don't know
Clear
that I've
diesel.
seen it yet.
It's
but the trouble
scary.
is when you've got the nozzle in there, you don't know what's coming out.
Yeah, I know. But you know how we found it?
Dumped a load of fuel or something.
Vehicle broke down.
Yeah.
As soon as we found it. It was very strange because one of the girls come in to me. Yes, we're proactive. We have 2 female mechanics in our shop. One of the girls come in and said, we found the problem. Won't start because it's got water in it. I went, oh, okay. How much water's in there? Oh, all of it. I said, what do you mean, all of it? She goes, yeah, we pulled the fuel filter off. It's full of water. I said, hang on, it was running. It was running shit, but it was running. It doesn't run on water. That'd be great.
Yeah,
but it doesn't.
That'd be some serious advancements in engine technology if it could run on water.
Cheap. And I said, let me have a look at this. And I'm looking at it going, no, it's not. I said, smell it. And she smelled it. She goes, but it doesn't smell like diesel. I said, no, it doesn't smell like diesel. And I said, but it's still running, so it can't be all water. I said, this thing will be dead by now. And it's too clear. Anyway, drain the fuel. Sure enough, these people just got a tank of fuel. And it was in the last 40 Ks. As soon as that sort of fuel started to really come through.
So you got it out the line.
Boom. Yeah. Well, not just that. What was mixed obviously, in the rest of the tank too. So I said it would have been a lot worse. We literally drained it, fuel filter, flushed the whole lot, put new fuel in it, started straight away. So they took it back and said, what the hell's this? And then people, I don't know. It was an independent fuel supplier. We won't say who it was, but very well known. And this is the sort of stuff. I went around for probably 18 months doing a diesel training course, and no one could tell me what it was. And there's this old guy in one of the classes, a salty old bastard. He's sitting there. He goes, "I know what it is." And I said, "Yeah, what is it?" He goes, "It smells like floor polish."
Yeah.
I'm like, who the hell polishes floors? I do remember this from the army, though, and I'm thinking, I do remember that smell, and I'm like, bloody hell, he's right. He's right. And it had a really distinct smell to it, but the weird part was, diesel on your hand shouldn't evaporate.
And it was evaporating.
It was evaporating off your hands over time, but more importantly, you put in your fingers, it felt dry. It didn't have
it didn't feel that oily film.
Didn't have that oil film on it.
Didn't feel like it all of a sudden was up to your armpit.
Yeah. Now, the other thing is, you can heat fuel up to a flash point, which I don't recommend, by the way, to get it to ignite.
Yep.
You
going back on, what's that? Boom,
I think we've all played that game when we were younger, but the diesel, it's very smoky too. It's got a lower, much higher flash point than unleaded petrol does, but this shit actually burns.
Oh, wow.
That scared me a lot, You get the butane torch out and, it's a bit on the floor. I was like, hello, that caught fire.
This didn't behave like it should have,
No, not at all. So it's something to look out for, particularly if you have the opportunity to have a look to see what the fuel actually looks like too. So it's good to notice that. And like I said, the only time I really picked up on it was the fact when we're changing fuel filters or changing fuel.
Yeah,
that
you
we
can see
find
the colour.
It's very, very strange. So just be wary of that.
Which is probably a good point we'll talk about later, which is if you've got a clear fuel bowl on your water trap, you can see the colour of your fuel you got there.
Yeah, very much so.
So
it's a good thing. I see a lot of tinted ones, and they're very hard to see stuff in there. Is it dirty water? Or is it colour of the bowl? They get that real brown tinge to them. They're very hard to see. The clear ones, the glass ones are definitely the way to go. I mean, a lot of these new pre-filters and stuff we'll talk about have sensors in them now. I mean, look, so many factory ones have a water sensor in them. You ever seen the water sensor light go off in a Hilux?
Yeah, mine did, but it wasn't actually for the water.
Okay, what was that for?
It actually, what happened is the fuel cap has got the breather hole in there, and it was clogged with red dirt, and I'd sucked my fuel tank inside itself.
Yep.
And so it caused a huge vacuum in the line, and it just wasn't pumping fuel. When I went to take the thing off, just about sucked my head into the...
Yep.
Yeah. And then as soon as I took that off, I was able to drive again. And then, it's the same light come on.
Okay.
For the thing.
Well, that little sensor that's in the bottom, it's basically a electrical contact. And when water gets between those two contacts, the light should come on. I mean, there's plenty of companies that make them aftermarket that are a lot better than a factory one. I don't know how many times on Land Cruisers they're full of water and the light still hasn't come on the dash.
Yeah.
And I say that to everyone in our training course. When are you supposed to change a fuel filter in a 200 series Land Cruiser?
I would say every 10,000 Ks.
When does it say it in the book?
I don't know. I didn't read the book.
Doesn't. There's no...
you mean change the sensor?
The filter.
The fuel filter?
The fuel filter. That's it. It's only last year they started to put it in the book. You can actually go and have a look yourself. There is no set schedule to change the fuel filter.
I did both my filters. It cost me a fortune to do it.
It's well worth it. That's insurance. You're paying for that.
Yeah, that's right.
Insurance, But I don't know how many times I've said this to people, but this is the dumbass thing that we're... the aftermarket's always been at war with manufacturers. Right?
Yeah.
And
because they want you to get their vehicles serviced by their technicians, because that's where they make most of their money.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
But when you look at it and go, well, okay, if my warning light didn't come and have water in it, you should be liable. We'll say company X. No, but you got water in it, so the warranty is void.
Yeah.
So it's a horrible.
You didn't put it out the tap.
You didn't check it. You didn't do that. They will always try and put it back onto the customer. It's very, very tough call. We've had quite a lot that have gone through warranty, but they have to be, independently tested. What I mean is, we'll take a sample before it even goes back to the manufacturer and photo it, everything, so they can't say it was doctored or anything else. We'll send a sample to them and they can come and get it. But this happens a lot.
Yeah.
So just something to be very wary of when it comes to water and water ingress into a tank. You can't stop it. you can't stop water getting into diesel. You do realise that, right?
Oh, I understand that.
So in
we just talked about that. Valve it was blocked.
Yep.
I mean, what goes through there? Air. What's in air? Moisture.
Condensation.
Condensation.
Goes through.
You just can't stop it.
Well,
it's gonna
as
get
you
in there.
use your fuel,
Then you got more
air coming in,
Yep.
and that's got higher, condensation because of humidity. But that's temperature change, hot to cold. Now, how does it get hot to cold? Everybody's fuel gets above 40 degrees. Everybody's. Doesn't matter where you drive. You've got road temp, you've got air temp, but you've also got the fuel that's not being used from the engine.
Yeah, you got your recirculation, the return that goes in there. So
put your hand on the return. We use a lot of different technology these days, and it's not just.
Well, 40 degrees is not that hot, really, is it?
It's very important to know that number though, because that's above what we need for something to grow.
Yes, which we will talk about.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, like, in Queensland, it's like average temperature is probably like 35.
Have a look at the temperature on the road though.
38 degrees. You got this black road, so you got reflection.
50, 60 degrees there.
Doesn't take much for it to go up 5 degrees.
Yeah. Well, underbody temperatures now. Under bonnet temperatures now average on cars 70, 80 degrees. That's standard.
There you go.
So I mean, dicking with your airflow. You talk about a snorkel. I love snorkels. I think they're a great idea, provided they're tested for flow, not just some dodgy one that you see a lot of these guys sell on eBay and crap. They're nasty. But as long as you've got a good airflow through there that's designed for that air intake and mass airflow sensor, for example, brilliant. Sealed up, perfect. But a lot of people start mucking around with bonnet scoops, and taking the underbody trays off is another big thing too. Don't ever do it. That's designed through a wind tunnel and everything that they use to cool the engine. Even the engine covers. People go, take them off because it's cool. I'm going, well, it's actually there for a reason. It's not to make it pretty. Yeah. It's actually to divert airflow.
On a Hilux, if you remove that, you'd have a gap between the...
there in the intercooler.
In the intercooler, so you'd be silly to remove it straight away.
Yeah.
But I'm sure most of the vehicles would be very similar.
Yeah, but a lot of...
So when people put a bash plate on there,
you've got to be really make sure that you're not changing the design of the airflow. I mean, no, because all of them have some sort of a cover there anyway.
Yeah.
They're not open.
Yeah.
Because basically that won't be efficient to cool the engine down.
No, because you're trying to pump it through the thing.
So through the radio, over the engine, out,
Past your spotlights and your light bars. And
of course. How many light bars can you get? I always laugh at this. It's like, guys, what are you looking for? Friggin' Perth? It's like, I can see, no one else can, but I can see.
Yeah. But you ever have, as soon as you have to come off high beam,
you
can't see anything.
Am I on the road? Look, it's one of those things where a lot of people aftermarket believe they can make something better. Yeah. I'm not talking about companies. I'm talking about guys in the backyard. People.
Yeah.
I look at that and go, well, that's a stupid bloody idea. I can make that better. Someone spent millions of dollars of R&D to get that right.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong.
And a wind tunnel and all that.
Yeah. Well, you look at a Nissan Patrol. I don't think it ever went in a wind tunnel, did it? But anyway, my digress.
How can you put a skip bin in a wind tunnel?
It was parked behind the Triton, all right? But anyway, the fact is, they make a lot of good stuff. And they spend a lot of money getting it there. I mean, yes, it's shit after a period of time. We know this. We do know this. Something that was designed to pass the warranty period.
Oh, look, and they're not the only. Oh, they're not the only ones. But I mean,
everyone does it. But I've
got other theories on all that as well. It's just
changing that bash plate though. You protect the engine from smacking into shit. Great idea, right? Yeah. But if you're going to have one that completely changed the airflow through an engine bay, I'd be really considering either one that had holes through it. That's why you see a lot of the ones that have got like a cage sort of system, or big holes that actually get the airflow through. You don't want to go changing that too much. It will change airflow for your intercooler and through the radiator. Yeah. So you want to make sure that that's going to be consistent with what balance. It's designed for. Yeah.
Well, then you've got like these the grass seed mats and all that sort of stuff like that. There,
yeah, scare me.
Yeah. It's one of those things where if you're in terrain where it's going to give you the protection, it's probably worth it. But if you're not...
But you have to clean it.
That's right. You've got to de-seed it.
Yeah.
But if you're not in a terrain where you're using it, then it's a waste of money and probably got adverse effects.
Absolutely. It's like putting a mesh screen or a light screen over the top of an air filter before.
It's like wearing a face mask.
Oh, don't even get me started.
And you're an athlete.
Friggin' face masks. The Olympics will be fun this year. But no, I think, changing that sort of stuff, it's like, I had a look at a couple of different model vehicles earlier last year, and the amount of vehicles that had fuel coolers. So where the fuel line actually goes through, it looks like a little radiator where air passes over it to keep the fuel cool.
I think the Hilux has one in the under the middle of the car.
That's right. They have a small one there, which is scary in effect too, because you get a rock there. It's just more things that really need protection. But I do believe that they're a brilliant idea. I mean, let's face it, it's cost that company a lot more money. Why did they put it there? They don't want to spend more money. They want to take money away. But obviously that's done something very important. That was to comply with emission standards.
Yeah.
So if we bring our temperature of our fuel down, that means less fuel goes back to the tank that's warm, that we can cool that fuel. We have less emissions coming from breathing from the tank as well.
Yeah, okay.
So they get the big tick on that one. Thank you very much. Move on. So you add all these little ticks together and it gets to their, Euro standard or, whatever standard we're in the world that they're using it against. Ours are Euro, obviously, as well. And it passes, and that's what they need. I think fuel coolers are a brilliant idea. Absolutely brilliant idea. I mean, VAG's been using them for quite some time as well. They're a weird animal. I've got a Volkswagen. Blew an injector yesterday. I'm not happy, but anyway.
You said that.
I've got to wait 2 months to get a new one because there's none in the country. Great work, Volkswagen. But one of the things with those is I really like the way that they've designed some of the fuel system, because instead of just taking off a fuel rail what isn't used off the injectors or off the rail or off the pump and getting dumped back to the tank, they actually recycle it back into the fuel filter. And it's a very big, metal container, and the filters element style filament inside of it.
Yeah.
So it comes back in there to be reused to go back in the engine. So it's not, it's giving another green tick. It's apparently it's a good idea. It's what they do. I like it because it's not going all the way back to the tank, and if there's any shit get picked up, dumping it back in the tank, it's getting dumped into our fuel filter.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And the amount of people that work on Volkswagen, you pull that fuel filter out the first time, how much metal's in the bottom of that thing? It's scary, but it's great because it's not going back into that engine, Yeah. And that's why look. When it comes to fuel filters, a lot of guys I talk with, Brad from up in Townsville, used to be McGrath Motors. He's done a lot of R&D when it comes to fuel filtration.
Yep.
Particularly on diesels and the different types of filters and stuff. And I was asking him before, and I said, "Look, what do you find on that?" And he said, "Well, Fuel Manager and Donaldson are the only two that we know of that actually have a coating on the fuel filter element. And what that does is it makes the fuel hydrophobic, so it actually traps that water. So
in the actual filter as well.
Yeah, so it won't let it actually pass through. But the interesting thing about it is you turn it off and let it settle. That water's going to run down and go into our bowl.
The fuel bowl, yeah.
And that's where it's going to build
up.
So
So not only you've got the, you've got two forms of mechanical water separation.
Separation, yep.
So you've got the water separation from the fact that it spins, I think it spins around the outside, then goes up the inside, so it drops out of suspension. Was it the other way around?
But then you've got the
Then you've also got the coating, which is like almost a chemical filtration there as well.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's kind of double up on the system.
I mean, everyone knows Fuel Manager, but a lot of people don't realise that Donaldson actually make fuel filters for every four-wheel drive on the
Well, Donaldson, anyone in the Volkswagen industry love their the stupid big filters with the thing and a big round. My dad, he's obsessed with it. He's like thinks it's the world's best. He's got his beach buggy. He's got these two massive, big, ugly,
the cyclopack
old
things. Oh God, yeah. They work.
Yeah, but they've been around for forever, and
Army's been using them for a long time too. Yep. So yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, that does work. It works very well. I've done back-to-back testing with it, and Brad's done a lot of research on micron rates. So a lot of guys ask, "What do you think of pre-fills?" 100%.
Yeah.
Cars are made to a budget, not to last.
Yeah.
Like you said, they make money from servicing, right?
Yeah.
Well, if it breaks outside of warranty, who gives a shit? The customer's got to pay for it, right?
Yeah.
That's what they want. But at the end of the day, we're in a throwaway society for a good 10, 15 years there. And we're coming out of it now.
Yeah.
We won't see this anymore. The reason being, one, we don't make cars. And two, the warranty periods, look at Hyundai and Kia, which is the same company, by the way. Hyundai bought out Kia and now it's all that shit anyway. But, 7-year warranties.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. They have to be replacing things for it to go that long, don't they?
This is what they reckon. This is why I love this era that we're in, because they're now making vehicles that actually were like they were 20 years ago. They last.
Yeah.
They last. Now, you get a dirty old FJ75 and, mate, that thing is banging around at 700,000 Ks and you might have done a set of injectors or a pump here and there, but it's still going.
Yeah.
You can't say that out of a 200 series. You're going, what?
Yeah.
But the cost of repairs is hideous as well. So this is why I say to everyone, those pre-filters are a magic thing. But you have to know how to fit them. More importantly, where to fit them. I don't mean in the vehicle. I mean, do you fit them before the factory fuel filter, or do you fit them after?
Well, the fact it's called a pre-filter says to me it should be pre the filter, so therefore before the filter. But when I did my research, there was pre-filters and post-filters, and people going, you need to get this one. It does like 3 microns. That now, my assumption as a normal human being would be that Toyota have provided a 5 micron filter from the factory. I believe it's 5. I could be wrong.
No.
Whatever it is, their car should be able to run off of anything that passes through that filter, is my assumption. And there should be some kind of tolerance within the engine that anything maybe slightly bigger than that should still be able to get through, because there has to be some kind of give and take.
No.
So why would you want to filter smaller than that? Because I believe now you're going to put more strain in the system, because now you're trying to push through something that wasn't there before.
Yes, yeah.
And if it's going to clog sooner,
Yeah.
and it's just, I think it's just going to, then you've got strain on your pump, because now your pump is pumping through a system that...
It depends on what system you got. With the anything that's common rail diesel, there's 2 very, very distinct systems that you have to realise what yours is as well.
Yep.
How to diagnose it and where to fit it. So you've got ones that are going to pump in the tank that supplies fuel up to the main high pressure pump.
Okay, yep.
Right, that's very common. But also just as common, we've got ones that just draw the fuel out of the tank, up through the filter, into the pump. So it has a pump on the back of the high pressure pump, which is a draw pump. So it's sucking.
So some are sucking instead
fuel,
of pushing.
some are pushing.
So
fuel.
what would be 2 classic examples of both?
Well, okay, so anything European
Yep.
has a pump in the tank just about.
Okay, yeah.
Most Korean stuff, all your common rail diesel Korean stuff is all pump in the tank.
Yep.
But then if you look at something, say for example, like a Triton
Yep.
or a Navara or a Hilux,
Yep.
suction pump.
Suction pump.
So it's
Okay,
going to
yep.
pull it up. So the later you go, you're starting to see a lot of the later model stuff now that has an in-tank pump. So there's a very distinct way you've got to look at the way when we do diagnostics is how is that fuel coming through. So if you've got a leak, say for example, at a fuel filter, you won't even know that you're getting air ingress into your fuel system cutting out, and you have to go out and prime the car every frigging morning to get it start.
Yeah, I think I told you I broke down the other day.
Yeah.
The first time I ever paid for a mechanic to service my vehicle, and
Broke
I
down.
had to pay for a tow truck. And I was spewing, and literally what it turned out to be was they didn't just take the pre-filter apart, they undid all the
Lines.
lines, pulled it out, pulled it apart, put it back together, and they didn't tighten up the threads on the back of the thing.
That
enough.
is a
and it was
huge part
sucking
of
in air. I couldn't tell
Now how? Why couldn't you tell?
because there was no fuel leaking anywhere,
So why wasn't there any fuel leaking?
because it was a vacuum.
And it was drawing
Because it was
fuel
drawing
through it.
was drawing the air through.
So how do you
obviously.
diagnose it?
I couldn't.
You can't.
Well, I couldn't when I was on the side of the road in
This
a rush
is true.
to get back
this
to work.
This is true. So I mean, you're going to prime it up, and
I
get
was
it going
there.
again.
I was there for like
Yeah.
the Hilux. I don't know what the other vehicles like, but the Hilux does take quite a long time.
Yeah, it's a very small plunger. Yeah.
And I was pumping, and then nothing happened, and then I just had a rest, and I come back, and I actually got it to go hard. Started the car,
Boom, cut out again.
cut it out again after like 30 seconds, and then I was
So
like,
this
I have
is a
fuel
big
issue.
problem that we face in the industry with a lot of do-it-yourselves, you guys that do all your filters and stuff as well. If you take those fuel lines off, always check to make sure they haven't separated. You know what I mean? Like inner and outer hoses, they start to separate.
Yes. So you got
cut
because you got like the rubber inside, then the braid or whatever, and then the rubber outside.
Correct. Yeah. So
Yep.
you got to cut it off.
And so,
Take it back a good inch or two. If you've got the room, take it back so that rubber's nice and clean again.
Yeah.
So when I clamp it on there, I'm not trying to use the clamp to make a seal. The hose should make the seal. The clamp is holding it on to the
Yeah,
barb
good point.
fitting.
Yep.
Right. So we teach this. So when we're looking for an air leak, for example, on a system like that, use a piece of clear hose. So if I put a piece of clear hose between the filter and my pickup for my pump, and then I run it, and I'll see little air bubbles coming through and go, hang on, I've got an air leak. Now you just keep moving that hose back till you find out where the air leak.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
99% of the time it's a filter.
Yeah.
Right? But sometimes you get them other place, but that's the bulk of it. When I've got a system though that has a pump in the tank, I know when I've got a fuel leak.
Yeah, because it'll start squirting out
It's
probably.
got pressure.
Because the classic was when one of the first times I did my service on my car myself, I just changed the fuel filter, and I was pumping it. Next thing, it's gone. And you know what it was? I forgot to lube the O-ring.
Oh, no.
And so it was just dry, and when I'd screwed it down, I just literally just by unscrewing it, there's so much diesel had gone everywhere. And then screwed it back together.
So what'd you lube it with?
The diesel.
Good.
Diesel, yes.
Lube it with whatever it comes off with, like an oil filter. Lube it with the oil that it comes with.
Yeah.
You don't need to go dicking around with rubber grease and everything else. Bit of diesel's perfect. As long as the mating surface is clean, you're good to go.
Yeah. So I always make sure to clean that off and just.
Well, a couple of little tips if anyone does get this problem where you've got an air leak or you've changed your filter and it's not going to start. Just remember, don't use friggin' Aerostart. Aerostart in a diesel is, you've heard it, crack, 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 crack.
I've never heard it in a diesel.
Don't do that. Yeah, people use Aerostart to start, you bastard. It's ether. Into a diesel, it's like rocket fuel. That shit is not meant to go in there. I tell all my students, I say, look, if you looked at fuel, the diesel, what its cetane rating is, and how low a flash point is, you can go up a bit, but not like that. That's more than avgas, right?
Yeah.
So if we went up just one, the cheapest, nastiest degreaser you can buy is Caro in a can. Everyone calls it Caro in a can.
Yeah.
Best start you bastard you get for a diesel. Doesn't knock.
Yeah, okay.
Make sure it atomizes fine. Up she goes. Doesn't rattle, doesn't carry on like a pork chop. It works great. But, I mean, the other way I got taught in the army too, when we've had air leaks or we're changing something, we've got to get that thing primed. And like you said, you're trying to prime something like this with a 19-litre fuel capacity through 3 filters. It's like some monkey sitting there for 2 hours trying to do that. This isn't going to work.
You cannot use your thumb.
I
find I use this part of my palm, then I use this part of my palm, and then I use this part of my palm, then I use this part, and then I go back and cycle through again.
I'll show you the quickest way to do it. Rag, compressed air, fuel tank.
Oh, okay.
Pump it up
from the
Pressurise the tank, pressurise the fuel, let it come through, and as soon as it starts there, back it off, then prime it up, you're done. All the air's gone out of the system.
Tricks
It
of the trade.
works. It works really well.
Even though you've told me that, I've still got to go and pump it because I don't have a compressor.
Little pumps are also really handy for that. But I mean,
wonder if my thumper will do that. The King's thumper.
Yeah.
I'll try it.
Yeah, it should.
It might be my next hack on my video.
Give it a go.
How to prime your fuel.
That's it.
Fuel system with a thumper.
You look at the fuel. I mean, if you've got shit fuel and you can tell the difference, you know your car better than anyone else. You drive it every day, right? You're going to feel the difference in your type of fuel. I say to everyone, if you're happy with the fuel, use them, great. If you're not, freaking change it. It's not rocket science. Which brings me to the point of fuel additives. A lot of people say it's bullshit, shouldn't do it. It's
now, when you say additives, are you talking about just
Putting your
additive
own
that you put in every time, or
Yeah.
just talking about like a cleaner, or you?
Well, there's a very difference between them.
Well, that's why I'm asking
Yeah.
like, what you're specifically talking about.
Well, I've tried many different kinds over the years. I do a lot of R&D at the shop, obviously, for my training. So I want to show other people what works, what doesn't, what's bullshit. And we all know there's some brands out there that talk the talk, but, they really don't follow through on what they get. But they've got a good marketing budget, let's face it, GoPro's a classic example of marketing versus actual, GoPro was the biggest piece of shit for a long time, but they've got better because everyone buys them. Right? So... I use different kinds of fuel treatments at work. Unfortunately, you guys can't buy them because they're not available retail. They're only available to the trade. They're out of Germany, but they're OE for Merc, Audi, Volkswagen, and they're amazing. Work really, really well. I'm misaiding our water in fuel, for example. More importantly, the ones that we've got to talk about is killing diesel bug. You brought up that topic before. If you know what diesel bug is, it's if we get water into our diesel, the microbes, the little creatures that live in diesel, or it lives in crude actually, don't get affected by heat. But
now I think it's called, like, you can correct me when I'm wrong in a second, Clacporus resinae.
That's one of them.
That's
one of them.
3, is it?
Yeah, that one's bad.
Did I pronounce it right?
That's correct. Yeah, resonate. Yeah.
Resonate.
Yeah. So the one that we really worry about is called kerosene resonate. Kerosene resonate is the one that reacts with oxygen.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay,
so it lives in its own bubble of shit. So if you've ever seen this stuff, it starts off with, you get a fuel sample and you'll see that's had water in it, particularly in the tank. We see.
So now it lives it lives between the layer of the water and the layer of fuel. It lives in the
one of them does.
Or one of them does.
The other one lives in the water.
Okay,
and it eats the diesel.
So
it
it
takes the
feeds off
oxygen
it.
out.
Yeah.
So but it needs two things to actually grow, and this doubles in size every 2 days. Right? So we just for shits and giggles, we like to, grow it. I want to see how it grows, where it grows, how I can kill it.
What, and then throw it in your mate's car?
Well, I'm a big fan of see how you can kill it. And then, you know what it's like with hunting.
Yeah.
Let's see how to kill shit. You want to do it right the first time.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It's ethical killing of the diesel bug. So we get the diesel bug, and it starts off with little dots of water, and then it goes yellow. Then it starts to go like an orangey brown.
Yep.
And then it starts to clump, and there's this slimy shit, and it looks like snot.
Yeah. Okay.
And then it goes black. And then once it gets to the black stage, it looks like someone put a black T-shirt into your fuel filter. That's essentially what it looks like. Because that's its shit, and it continues to keep growing and growing and growing.
Yeah, okay.
But it needs these two things. It needs water
Yep.
for food, and it needs temperatures above 38 degrees to actually multiply.
Which comes back to the recirculating fuel once you get that temperature over there. So anyone that thinks that they're okay because they won't be over that...
it's wrong. I mean, I teach all over Australia, New Zealand, and the States, and you go to some places like Adelaide. Have you ever been to Adelaide?
No.
It's friggin' hot.
Yeah.
And it's dry.
Yeah.
And it's hot and dry, right? But they don't get diesel bug as much as what we do because they haven't got the humidity in the air.
Yeah.
You go to, North Queensland, it's everywhere. It's prevalent. It's one of the biggest problems we've got. So the more humid the air, the more diesel bug we get. But that's not just from the servo or your car. It's obviously where it's stored as well. We're going to always get that in it. Temperature, water. So we can't stop the water getting into the diesel. We can minimize it.
Yep.
We can't stop the temperature of the fuel, but we can minimize it. And we can also look at how long we keep the fuel for. Does the vehicle sit outside for a month before you use it to go forward driving or hunting or whatever? Or is it a motorhome that sits there for 3 or 4 months? Is it a boat? Like boaties, there's a lot of good stuff on the market. There really is that you can add to fuel. There's one called Fuel Saver.
And so these additives protect you against the diesel bug?
Well, it protects it against that. It's a layer between the fuel and the air.
Oh, so it floats on the surface a little bit, does it?
Yeah, it's not like a...
So when you add this in, does it stay in the tank for a few refills, or
just that tank?
It'll go. Okay, so we'll suck it off the top.
You add that shit in there. It's not like a mechanical layer where you can physically see it. It's a molecular layer in the fuel. Yeah. But it protects it not so much from the water getting in. That's going to stop some of it. That will stop that layer, and it tends to drop it. But it actually stops the fuel from evaporating and breaking down that way as well. Yeah, so it actually holds it in.
So we might just talk about. We keep talking about the
bug,
the moisture, the air. So what I believe what happens here, and one of the ways of protecting this is keeping your tank as full as possible.
Absolutely.
Time, is you get the moisture comes in just through the air that comes in through your your fuel cut breathe valve, or the your breather tube on your tank there as well. The moisture comes in cold at night. It then, just like condensation on a can, it goes to the outside thing, it runs down, and it comes into your car. So the thing with the moisture is you keep sucking in fresh air, more moisture, and so you can't really remove it. It just keeps bringing in more and more moisture. So it's not necessarily that we're putting water in there. It's coming in. It's all coming in through the air, through the moisture. Yeah. So
the more humid, the more water molecules in the air. The more it goes in. The other thing you're saying, how it condensates, goes to the outside of the tank. Doesn't just run down, but every time you take off again, now the fuel moves and it washes it all down, and then it goes in the bottom of the tank too. Some of the fuel treatments you're going to get on the market are emu oil, just crap, realistically. You want to try and find a fuel treatment that does a couple of things. You want one that cleans, all right? Because if you want your diesel to last, you need clean fuel.
Yep.
If you want your diesel to last, you need clean oil.
Yep, and if
we've got clean fuel,
good oils also have cleaning additives in there as well. Don't they?
We need clean fuel. We need clean oil. If the fuel doesn't combust completely in a diesel, right? If we have incomplete combustion, we have black smoke.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Right. So that's because there could be multiple things. It could be low compression. It could be shit fuel. It could be dirty injector tips. It could be starting to get a carbon buildup, and of course it just keeps getting worse and worse because it creates low combustion and hot spots and burning.
Snowball effect.
Exactly. So it just gets worse and worse. If we kept that fuel clean, we kept that injector tip clean, and we keep the combustion chamber clean, we get a better burn. If we use good clean fuel with a higher cetane rating, we're going to burn all of it. So we're going to have, bulk of it. We're going to not have less carbon buildup in there in a diesel. We're always going to get some black shit in a diesel, right? Just the way it works. But we want to try and keep that thing as clean as possible. Most common rail diesels these days are very, very efficient. All right?
Yeah.
They're not like old Smoky Joes. They don't blow a lot of smoke, soot it up. We don't do that anymore. That doesn't work. We're just pissing money out the outside, blowing smoke out. So that's incomplete. But if we get white smoke, that's no combustion. All right? We've literally got raw fuel.
Yeah,
Out the back. All right? So we've lost compression, or usually we've lost compression. Or we've got an injector that's just gone. It's no longer atomizing; it's just spraying fuel straight in there. Okay,
yeah.
So you're going to hear that in a diesel. It sounds like a chaff cutter now, but I mean, white smoke, real bad. Black smoke, we're going to start seeing it, particularly on new stuff. You got a DPF and you got black smoke, you got real problems. Right? Massive problems at this stage, and that's for another day. We'll talk about that. But if we keep our fuel system clean, we will get better power and economy, but also a lot of people go, oh, I don't really care about the soot. You should. 100% should care about the soot level, because where's it go? Okay, think of every Mitsubishi engine ever built. A 200 series Land Cruiser, for that matter, pull a manifold off, inlet manifold.
Yeah.
That's soot and oil residue from the combustion going past into the sump, going up and breathing.
And then you've got the EGR, which then sucks some
so
of
the
it back
EGR's
in.
got exhaust gas recirculation. That's getting exhaust gas, putting it back into the intake manifold from the exhaust manifold.
Dumping the soot into
so it's like shitting in your own mouth.
Yeah.
It's essentially what it is, right?
Yeah.
So we don't like that. We don't want that to happen. That's why I say, do EGRs, we'll get into EGRs. Are EGRs good? Absolutely. They're brilliant. For about 60,000 Ks, and they're shit. They're completely useless. They are. They don't work. I mean, what idiot decided we're going to put some partially burnt exhaust gas to put back into an intake manifold, to put back in the engine, to strangle it? Oh, that's right, because we want to lower combustion temperatures to reduce NOx, which is oxides of nitrogen, not nitrous oxide. All right, so we want to bring the NOx down, we're going to bring combustion temperature down. So we'll let exhaust gas come back in to choke it. Great idea. So anyway, we have to cool that exhaust gas, so an EGR cool all these problems. But if we have dirty fuel, when it's getting burnt coming through the exhaust, that's now coming back into the intake as well.
Yeah.
So all that soot is going back in the intake. Now the breather from our crankcase breather, because it's not a positive crankcase ventilation like a petrol, because we don't have vacuum. Right?
Yeah.
So every time I boost it up and get pressure past the rings in the combustion chamber, we get pressure in the sump, comes up, breathes. And then this oily, misty shit, we've all seen it, pull the breather off.
Well, you can often see it leaking down the side of your turbo.
Well, everyone thinks, oh, my turbo's gone. No, that's just blow-by. Right?
Yeah.
Blow-by's evil shit. But now if you put blow-by with soot, it becomes diesel
Sludge.
putty.
Yeah.
Diesel putty.
So hence why you should have a
Clean fuel,
catch can.
clean oil.
Yeah.
So if we keep our fuel clean and we kept our oil clean, we won't have these problems.
Yeah.
Right? The catch can, separate the oil from the air. Brilliant idea. It was factory
But,
on a lot
but
of
what you're
Japanese
saying is to try and avoid that at the first instance.
Well, you're never going to avoid it.
No, that's right.
High combustion pressures, high boost, thinner oils. This is going to happen. But you can, once again, limit it. It's insurance. It's like doing the filter. Now, if I put that in there and it burns better, and it's cleaner, and I make more power.
And you're stopping the diesel bug?
Stopping the diesel bug. So that's the thing, though. You've got to find your cleaner that has a 3-in-1. So it's got to have cleaner, a cetane booster, and you've got to have something that's killing the bug. That's really important, because a lot of them say it kills the bug, but there's 17 different varieties in our fuel. There's 2 that we have to worry about.
Yeah.
Right? The kerosene resonate is the bad one.
Yeah.
But look for good quality fuel treatments, and there's some guys that'll tell you there's some good stuff out there. F10 is a brilliant one. You can actually use in petrol and diesel.
Well, I think my mate put it in my car for me.
F10?
F10, yeah.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Blue. It's
Yeah,
not
that's the one,
expensive.
yeah, blue.
F10's very good product. It's good for retail. There's different stuff available for workshops, which is awesome. And it's specific. They just don't let retail touch it, that's all. But then you've got...
So if I went to a mechanic that had that, what is he just going to put a capful of that in the fuel tank?
Absolutely. Treat it and see how much fuel you've got and treat it accordingly.
Yeah, okay.
The products that I use, it's called Blue Chem, Power Max.
Yeah, okay.
So a couple of other big companies that these guys make for, like Worth, Liquid Moly. These guys actually manufacture in Germany, OE, and they manufacture for a lot of these other companies for different products as well. And it's phenomenal. I've done a lot of testing back to back. BG's another good one. BG's a very good product for doing that, work for the diesel cleaner and that sort of stuff as well. It's just really hard to get through your retail agent. You've got to find a dealer. So if you can find a dealer, go to them. You know, BG's great stuff. I've found there's a lot of stuff on the shelf you might as well just piss in your own tank. It's that bad. You know, it's useless. It really is. And there's a couple of brands there everyone, I'm sure, are aware of. The names I'm allowed to say because I don't want to go to jail and lose my livelihood. But, you know, have a look for something that other people have used and have a good positive result, but they can actually back it up with testing as well. You know, you want something that's going to break down that water molecule. So instead of having a big puddle of water, I mean, we know that water is bad for the diesel. We know we don't want to suck up water and put it through the pump.
It's
and
bad
block
for the
up
injectors as well.
The pump's the first thing it's going to go. Trust me. The injectors are number 2. The pump, actually the suction control valve, that controls our fuel pressure. Right? By metering how much fuel, it's a fuel metering valve or suction control valve.
And that thing is not cheap either.
Oh, they're not too bad now. They're under a couple $100. And they're actually...
Well, like, $300. Well, at least for a Hilux, it's about $300, I think, something like that.
I keep thinking of my price, but yeah, fuck you. So,
but that was off eBay.
Oh, no! Slap this guy!
No, I can't remember where it was, but anyway, yeah.
But the suction control valve is for a vehicle that doesn't have a pump in the tank. One that does have a pump in the tank, it's called a fuel metering valve. It does the same thing, moves backwards and forwards and allows a certain amount of fuel to get into the high pressure pump. It's not timed to the engine, so you don't make more fuel pressure with more revs of the engine.
It just continually
pumps, right? And the more fuel I give to it, like a gurney, the more water I give to it, the higher the pressure it goes. It's set. That's beautiful. That's the first thing to crap out. And a lot of these guys, you get the fuel problems. You had bad fuel, and you're driving along, the car cuts out. Turn the key off, turn the key back on, boom, starts up again. That a lot of the times you get up with a fuel pressure codes, but it's not a fuel pressure. It's the fact that I can't control the amount of fuel getting to the pump. That little sucker moves in and out of a sleeve. You talk about tolerances. There are no tolerances anymore on common rail diesel. It's so finite now that, you know, you get one little bit of crap in there. You get a build up of paraffin wax, dirt, and stuff that's in the fuel. Very small parts that pass through the filter. This stuff scores the hell out of this thing. And look, instead of being highly polished, got these little marks, they jam. So there goes your fuel pressure. Boom, done.
Yeah, cool.
That could get done. Once it goes through there, it goes in the pump. Ooh, then we're in big trouble. Pump starts getting noisy. We start losing pressure. Next thing it goes kapooey, a couple of grand. It goes in the injectors.
And so that reiterates why you should have really good filtration on your system, of course.
But, you know, let's face it. If I've got a filter for, say, for example, under warranty, the manufacturer wants their filter to be the last thing to touch the fuel before it goes into the engine. Yeah,
because they want it to be the clean fuel to be as close to where it's being used as possible.
Kind of makes no sense though, does it? Why am I putting a 5 micron filter before a 30 micron filter?
Well, that's if you're putting it as a post filter.
Nah, it's sad, isn't it? But this is what the manufacturers want under warranty. So as far as I'm concerned, I'd look at it from...
So I've got a pre-filter. My 30 micron is between the tank and the filter.
Yep. And then what's your main filter?
So I've got a 30 micron.
And then 5.
And then I believe it's a 5.
Yeah.
But there's no written specs on what that is. So
if you contact your company... We use Ryco. Big fan of Ryco. A lot of people put shit on different fuel filter companies. Now, I use Ryco.
Well, I've just been buying Toyota ones.
Yep.
Most of the time.
So
and if I can't, I will get a Ryco.
Toyota filters are made to a price. Not to a spec, you know.
Well, I know for a fact I have seen other brands, manufacturers, like there was Holden in my Astra, and I can tell you now, I had the Ryco one and the Holden one, and they were identical. Yeah. In every stretch of imagination.
Okay, so
even the box was the same, just with different printing on the box.
Ryco will make them to manufacturers' specs or higher, not lower. You know, a lot of companies out there that go, "Oh, it's a filter, should be right." And when you look at it, you take it apart, and you go, "What happened to the rest of it?"
Yeah.
You know, it's like, yeah, but you only paid $9. Yeah, but, you know, this is misconceptions a lot of people. I mean, the fuel filters that we use Ryco all the time. I use Fuel Manager as well. The Direction Plus stuff where they make our fuel pre-filters and catch cans, obviously, make them together, you know, set up that. It's brilliant. I mean, we want that sort of stuff, so it's getting the shit before it gets into that factory filter. You know, I want to catch the bulk of anything, and particularly with a water trap.
Well, and that was my point, is what you want is you can't be trapping too much water, you know, so have a better quality, you know, water trap, still with your factory quality water trap, you know. I think you can't catch too much water.
Yeah, well, I mean, the factory ones don't really have a great separation let's face it, they're once again made to a price. Some of the stuff, like Brad was telling me about, what was it, the Isuzu D-Max 08 to 12 one, the OE is 15 micron. Ryco's 5.
So you're talking about, so just by changing the filter in the vehicle
housing,
with
yeah.
like a Ryco substitute.
But you've got to find what's suitable for that vehicle, obviously, as well. You don't want to have people go overboard too and go and put a 5 micron filter pre-filled and another 5 micron filter, and it can actually be too much for the system.
Too much constriction.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you've got a worn pump.
Because that was what I did mention before, where some of them have, like, go for this post filter, and it's like a 2 or 3 micron filter. Like,
It's too much.
So much load on your system.
Yeah, I did one with a Hilux.
And it's excessive because the vehicle's made to run on
Yeah,
5 micron. Well,
yeah.
in Isuzu's case, a 15 micron.
15 micron.
It
Yeah.
should be able to handle anything.
That's just
small.
a filter. We want to be able to separate the water and the shit and sludge anyways if it gets in there. But I mean, this is the sort of thing that I've had so many discussions with Brad over the years, and it's just, the guy's pedantic and he just maps everything, you know, and the results is like a science lab, you know, and it's like, Jesus, man, you got way too much time on your hands. But he loves this shit, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, we had a good talk about it. I said, well, you have a look at something like your model Hilux. I think it was like a...
So I've got
08.
So mine's a 13. So for those watching from 05 to 2015, essentially the same Hilux.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 1KD FTV. That filter in there, I put a pre-filter in it. Won't say what brand it was. I put a pre-filter in there, and every second or third day, the car wouldn't start. I'd have to go out and prime the damn thing up again. And it turns out what it was doing was actually it was too fine. And it was creating a vacuum, so it was pulling it through. It was actually drawing the fuel back out of the bloody fuel filter.
Of the factory fuel filter in
and
the morning.
sucking it through and then drawing air into the thing. And you have to prime it up every time. And I did the same thing. I tested it, checked to make sure all the clamps, the hose, everything was perfect. And I couldn't work. And then we put the clear line on overnight, and we didn't see air bubbles, but we did see the clear hose suck in on itself. I'm like, damn. And then we put a gauge on it. We actually seen a lot of vacuum in there.
Yeah, wow.
You know, 20 inches of mercury sucking in. I'm like, damn, that's not good. Took that out, bypassed it, boom, no problem. So it meant putting the right pre-filter with the right main filter as well.
Yeah.
And that's something that, you know, take the advice of people who have done it and take the advice of people that sell it. They're not, okay, so if it doesn't work, it's not going to stay on the market, is it?
No, that's right.
That's
right. And what's funny, you know, I have a Direction Plus system in mind.
Yep.
And when I spoke to the guy, I said, hey, what's your thoughts on this? And he actually said to me, he goes, if you're never leaving the city and you're just going to and from work and you're using the same service station
and
all the
good
time,
fuel.
and good fuel, he said, it's a waste of money for you. He said, but if you're driving out to remote places, you're filling up at all different sorts of servos, you can't control where you're getting your fuel from, you've got no consistency, you're on the back roads where you don't want to be broken down, yes, you need one of these. You shouldn't not have one.
I disagree with him. I disagree with that 100%. Simply for the fact that there is no tolerance in anything anymore. We're not driving around in 80s, you know, cruisers and shit. Common rail diesel has no tolerance for shit. It really doesn't. And the fact is that we talked about the water.
Yeah.
If you're living anywhere in Australia, you're going to get condensation, you're going to get humidity pretty much.
But what I thought it was just a genuine way of saying, you know, that it might not be for everyone. But I think
every
like
car
we
should.
just talked about, I think it would be admissive of you to not put one on your vehicle if you wanted to keep your vehicle for any length of time.
100%. You know, you're going to get past that warranty period, no problem at all, because you're keeping the fuel cleaner. That's what we're looking for.
Yeah.
If you're a mad keen shooter or hunter in Australia, you need to get behind Firearm Owners United. I've been a member for a very long time, and I would encourage everyone to put their support behind Firearm Owners United and sign up and become a member today. Now, Firearm Owners United have recently released a flag that is a take on the Don't Tread on Me or Don't Step on Sneck, which is an American pro-gun flag, and we've got this fantastic Australian version with an echidna. I like to call it Don't Tread on Eck, and it just says Don't Tread on Me. I was actually going to make a very similar flag, but they beat me to it. But they've given Hunt Shoot Off-Road an exclusive offer of using the code HSO-flag, and you can get 20% off the cost of the flag. So it's normally $35 including shipping. They'll give you 20% off including shipping, and that can be yours to own. I paid full price, you can get it for 20% off, and I really encourage supporting those guys. Those guys are doing a lot behind the scenes, a lot in the forefront of all this sort of stuff, the hoo-ha with the Adlers, Wedge-tail eagles, all that sort of stuff. Those guys really have your back. They're other avid shooters that are really involved in the scene. They've all got the latest firearms. They've all got the WFA ones. They know all the stuff. They're gun nerds, and you can't support a better organisation than a bunch of gun nerds that know all the specs, love their firearms, and I highly encourage for you to go over there, become a member, and tell them I sent you. All right, guys, let's get stuck into the show again.
Now, if you guys doing your fuel filter and you take your housing off, when you unscrew the type of filter like your patrols and all that sort of stuff,
Yep.
turn it upside down. And you'll see if you've ever had diesel bug in there, and you can see by looking what comes out. Shake the shit out of your filter and tip it out and have a look what comes out. All right? If you have a look in there and you got a black residue underneath it, wipe it off and it looks silver, but it looks slightly pitted or like you've sanded it with a bee blaster.
Yep.
That diesel bug started to eat the alloy. Because when it runs out of food, guess what? It starts to eat metal.
Yeah,
it's
okay.
very, very acidic.
Now, what would that look like? Is it just a black sludge?
Yeah, it looks
in
like,
your filter?
If you see it in your filter stuff, there's little yellow spots, brown spots like water in there, and then it goes like snot. Looks like clear snot sort of shit with black or brown bits in it. Think of your worst cooking day ever, and you made a cake, and before it got cooked, that's what it looked like. It was shit in a bowl. We grow it. And
I think you mentioned it looks like a black oily rag or something.
That's at the worst stage. You're already screwed by that. But
okay.
It looks like basically someone put a black t-shirt in there. That's what you're pulling it apart. But when it's slimy and stuff like that, it's very acidic too, so it does eat metal. It's bad for pumps, really bad for injectors. It's shocking.
Yep.
Before it hits the pump, out of our filter it goes into the suction control or fuel metering valve.
Yep.
It looks like a little idle speed motor, just moves a piston in and out.
Yep.
That controls our fuel pressure in common rail diesel. So any shit gets in there, that thing gets scored, gets jammed up. That's a very, very common problem that we're seeing on Hiluxes, Patrols, Navaras are shocking for it, all your Mitsubishis too. They had a recall on them many years ago for your Hiluxes. They were too small, actually bigger now. So you get a stronger motor in there to actually pull the piston.
Yeah, okay. And they're not cheap to replace if they go either.
$200 a pop. So, and you got to get it diagnosed correctly as well. But that's where that shit goes in there, and it's causing a lot of problems. If it gets through there, now it's into the pump, and the pump's got pistons that move around circular motion, pumping the fuel.
Yeah.
So, and when we've got like one rotation of the engine, that's turned around 18 times inside the pump. So those pistons, divide that by 3, they're 6 times pumping every time one rotation. That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It brings our fuel pressure up very, very quickly. That goes through to our common rail, feeds the injectors. But we've got the injectors there, cause problems with them, and the return, so we've got a pressure relief valve on the rail as well. They can get full of gunk and shit in there. They blow, then you've got no fuel pressure. So there's just a multitude of things that can go wrong.
Yeah.
If you don't keep that fuel clean.
Yeah, okay. And so what does it do? You were saying, I think, it puts a thin layer, molecular layer across the top of the fuel.
That's a fuel saver one. So if we're leaving our fuel for long periods of time, that's a fuel saver. You can put that in there, and it stops that fuel from going off pretty much.
Yeah, okay.
It doesn't stop water. It's not going to stop water. The physical barrier is still going to have water go into the fuel. Once again, if it's sitting for long periods of time, highly suggest.
Well, the water sinks to the bottom anyway.
Right.
So,
but we want to try and maintain that, like you said, tank full as possible.
Yeah. So if you're going to leave your vehicle for any period of time,
fill it up
to the brim, that will give you some protection because first of all, you've got less space for air to be sucking in and out with the temperature change.
Yep.
And also just no capacity for it, which is the same thing in the US and Canada where they freeze over.
Yeah.
They always fill the tank up when they're going to leave it sit. So
yep.
that was a tip that my mate gave me. He said, if you're not going to be using your vehicle for periods of time, fill it up to the brim.
Yep. Fuel saver, like you can buy that anywhere. It's good stuff. That's
and
good for that.
F10, I think, was the one.
Fuel treatment. There's a lot of good stuff on the market. F10's a great product because it's petrol and diesel.
For the people like me,
retail,
because I can't get the good one.
Well, I mean, talk to your mechanic. If you got a mechanic, obviously should have a mechanic. Obviously going to do some work. Have a talk to him about some of these products that only tradies can get. I resell it to my customers as well, the ones that actually listen and don't overdose stuff or underdose stuff or put the wrong things in.
Yeah.
I say to them, put this in every tank. Or, you get some people that don't drive it. Say if someone drives from Brisbane to the Gold Coast every day.
Yeah.
They're doing 1,000 Ks a week.
Yeah.
I'd say to them, put it in every second tank. You're getting fuel constantly through this thing.
Yeah.
But change your fuel filters every 3 months. And they're like, Jesus, that's a lot. And I'm like, do you want to protect your engine? Do you want to protect your pump and injectors?
Yeah.
It's big money. You know, like yours is, I think, about $8,000 to do pump and injectors. It's not cheap.
Well, apparently you can get them cheaper if you buy the injectors from the NZ. That's what I've heard,
Yeah,
but I'd rather not have to buy them at all.
Don't do that.
But you get no warranty with it or anything like that
Yeah,
either. So.
the other thing is you know what gen you're getting too. So there's a lot of shit on the internet where people go, I can get injectors for $350. I'm like, yeah, you're buying Gen 2. They're up to Gen 7.
Yeah.
You know, they're Gen 7 for a reason because the other one was shit.
Yeah.
So, you know, but keeping the fuel system clean keeps the fuel clean, which then in turn keeps the oil cleaner too.
Yeah.
So if our fuel's clean and we have less carbon, it's going to not go into the oil.
Yep.
Then it's not going to go cause us blow-by, very acidic as well, and then come back into our engine and through the EGR. So just it's compounding the problem. Clean fuel, clean oil. If we keep those two things, you can double the life of your engine straight away.
Okay, which brings us back to the point of you. I think you'd asked me pre-filter versus post-filter. Now, I believe from our conversation we had offline was really depends on the type of vehicle you got.
100%.
So some vehicles have, you know, like a Hilux has, I believe, like a 5 micron filter. So we want to get a good like 30 micron pre-filter.
Yeah.
But what was some of the other vehicles you mentioned that?
You look at something like an RC Colorado, for example.
Yeah.
You know, 2008 to 2012, or D-Max, same setup. You know, they've got a 15 micron filter is standard factory OE, right? So
Yeah.
you buy aftermarket filtration like Ryco, for example, they're a 5 micron.
That's just for the core of the filter, so you can keep your
Housing, yeah.
housing, put in the Ryco
It's just
one.
a different branded filter, yeah. You
Yep.
remember, manufacturers don't build stuff that's just awesome. They just build stuff that just passes. It only has
Yeah.
to just pass for the warranty period, and that's it. You know, they make it to suit the vehicle. If another company comes along and makes a product that exceeds OE, use it. Real
Yeah.
simple. You know, and a lot of the times people go, oh, you know, it's really cheap for me to buy an OE filter. If you're happy with OE filter, great. But if you want that extra protection, I say pay it. Just
Yeah.
pay the money for extra protection. It's like pre-filter. What are you losing? You're losing nothing. You're buying insurance for your car. That's it.
Well, and realistically, it's pretty cheap for the,
yeah,
especially if you're going to keep the vehicle for any length of time.
absolutely. And it adds value. It adds resale value. Anything. I pop a bonnet for doing an RFCQ inspection. I see a catch can, pre-filters, you know, shit written everywhere where it's being serviced and belts done. I'm like, this is the car that you want to buy.
Yeah.
Someone's looked after it. It hasn't just gone back and gone stamp, 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 and then
Yeah.
you go pull something off. Oh, look, never had a MAF clean. Oh, it's never had a catch can. Oh, God, when was the last time a fuel filter was done on this thing?
Yeah.
I don't care how good the car looks. That's what's really important. How long is a common rail diesel going to last after you buy it second hand? Depends on the servicing. Depends on the preventative maintenance that you do.
Yeah. And so we had mentioned, so there are, so really, there's a couple of type of vehicles. Some do require a pre-filter, some do require a post-filter. So the likes of Direction Plus really get on their website and have a look
Absolutely.
at what they recommend for that specific vehicle. So, and I think that's where a lot of confusion
Yeah.
comes in, where people go, oh no, you should have a pre-filter, you should have a post-filter, but really it's vehicle specific. Me, as a Hilux owner, I shouldn't have a post-filter, I should have a pre-filter.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you've got to look at the filtration size from factory. You look at the way the system's set up. And quite frankly, you look at something like your OE want their filter to be the last filter. They want their filter to be the last before it gets to the fuel pump.
They want it to be basically as close to
They want theirs.
where it's being used from.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can put a pre-filter on there, but don't go getting a smaller pre-filter than the filter you're putting in there.
No, that defeats our purpose.
That's what a lot of people do. So you got to make sure, like you're saying, when
Yep.
you buy one, make sure that it is specific to that vehicle. So I don't want to go putting a 2 micron filter before a 15 micron filter.
It completely defeats the purpose.
It does. It's like
But-
catching fish in a big net, little net. That's what you want. Not a little net first and block it, you know.
Yeah.
The whole point of pre-filtration is definitely the water trap part of it as well.
Yep.
You can actually see the fuel.
Yeah,
You
because
can
it's
see
got,
the
well,
shit.
as we mentioned at the very start,
bowl.
you've got the glass bowl, clear bowl. You can clearly see, A, the colour of your fuel that's in there,
Yep.
and B, if you actually have water in there and you need to
Yeah.
drain that system.
Like I said to a lot of people, have a look at your fuel bowl. They can get discoloured too. Make sure they stay clean. You take them off and clean them,
Yep.
obviously. But have a look at it. You won't actually see clean water in the bottom of the bowl. It's always filthy. It's brown, murky looking crap. I mean, the last thing you want that is going through the pump.
Well, because where's the water live? On the bottom of the tank. Where's all the sediment live? On the bottom of the tank. It's just coming through with all the filth. And I must say, like, I think my last service when I took the bowl off, I think there was like some red scum in the bottom there with it.
Yeah,
it's probably diesel bug, I don't know.
Well, if it's got something growing in there, you know, there's a lot of different types of microbes and algae, essentially, that are growing in the fuel.
Yeah.
But some of them aren't particularly bad. They don't do anything. They can just cause debris, essentially, that's going to get blocked in the filter. But like Kerosene resinae is evil, and it destroys pumps and injectors terribly. I mean, put it this way. Talk to a diesel pump and injector reconditioner specialist. They will tell you every single time, clean fuel, quality fuel, they'd be out of business.
Yeah,
simple.
wow.
It's as simple as that. I mean, they're reconditioning pumps off everything from tractors, trucks, earth moving equipment to four-wheel drives and cars all the time. A lot of the stuff they don't rebuild anymore as the new modern cars is because they literally don't make parts for them that are even worth repairing. So, it's $5,000 for a pump, there you go. And it's like, Jesus, you know. But then you look at something where we've got earth moving equipment, trucks, a big four-wheel drive, particularly older stuff where you're doing pumps and that, they recondition them. Have a look at the shit inside, and it's all because of water and sludge. That's what rips them to pieces.
And so the other thing with the smaller micron filters, is that going to put added stress on the engine where you've got like...
Not on the engine, but on the fuel system.
On the fuel system, like like your diesel pump, your injectors and all that sort of stuff. Because now you're like
So
trying to breathe through a little straw.
That's right, yeah. You put a mask on, and you put like a COVID mask on, and then you put a mask on over the top of it. It's going to be harder and harder. You'll work more to suck that air.
Then run in the Olympics.
You run the Olympics, mate. Yeah, that's it. But I mean, this is the thing. We start looking at this sort of shit and go, well, how does that system work? Does it have a pump in the tank? Or does it use a pump on the back of the main pump that actually draws the fuel through?
Yeah.
Like a Hilux or a Triton. Then you look at all your Korean, a lot of European stuff has an in-tank pump. A lot of them are going that way. So it pushes the fuel through. So if we put a pre-filter on there that's restricting it too much, it has to work harder. We've seen them fail. We've seen fuel pumps fail. We've seen cars shut down, have breakdowns and stuff because the filter is actually causing a problem. The one we did on the Hilux was... basically, the pump was worn, like it done too high Ks, and we used the wrong filter to start with. Because now it was trying to draw it through there and the factory filter as well. It was too much for it and started to create a vacuum between them and pulling fuel through overnight, and it created a cavity and suck air back through the damn thing. Yeah. So this is the problems that we face, but you've got to realise if it's that kind of system, you don't want to go too small anyway, creating more pressure or working the pump harder. You want to create better filtration and you want better flow, but you don't want to restrict that, either pressure or...
So, and I think you mentioned that's the Jeeps now.
I think
systems. The Isuzu, they have two filters, so they effectively have a lot. It's not actually a parallel system. Oh, no, it is parallel system instead of a series.
Yeah. So they just sit in a big housing at two filters.
Yeah.
Pop out they come, pop back they go.
Except you've got to dump
3
litres
load of fuel. Yeah, so about a litre and a half or something. But the idea is we've got a greater surface area, so we're not restricting the flow, but we're getting a better filtration out of them. So the Jeeps and the Colorados all use that same system on there, and it's a good system. It's easy to use. It's got an in-tank pump. You prime the system up. I mean, we have a lot of problems with priming, as we talked about before. Pressurising the tank with a compressed air. Obviously, make sure there's no water in the compressed air. We need to juice that into it.
You want a water trap on your compressor.
That's right, exactly right. But that works too with a system that draws the fuel through. I won't say it sucks it through because there's no such thing, but where it draws it through with a pressure differential, rather than pushing it through from a pump at the back. This is something I say to all the guys that are doing themselves. Make sure that those fittings are tight. Make sure the hose are right. And if they're frayed or they're worn at the end, if you've got the room, cut them back. Put them back on. Use new hose clamps. Don't use those stupid spring-loaded shit things too.
See,
mate,
I love those things, and now I've heard that they're...
Ping! Where'd that go?
But I've never had a problem with them. That's the problem.
They're shit. They go on once, and that's the tension. You take it off, you just lost the tension on that thing. You ask any mechanic that's put on one, and you're like, oh, how much softer is that now? I won't reuse spring clamps.
What's the good ones? Do you it's just the regular screw-on ones? Okay,
just buy quality. I use Worth brand ones. They're Zebra, I think they're called. The difference is where the worm drive is here. Instead of just being pushed over and hold like that, like a lot of the cheaper ones, they actually come across and they're spot welded underneath, so they don't come undone.
Yeah, okay.
You
Oh, so they're
crank
not one of
them.
these ones with the 2 bars and a screw through the bar. That's overkill.
They're wire ones. No, they're dangerous too. You know, they're cutting into your fuel hose. You want a nice even spread of pressure around that hose.
Yeah, okay.
Over the barb. So the hose is meant to go onto the barb. That's the seal. The hose clamp is to stop it from coming off.
Yeah. So you don't even have to tighten it up too much. You just
Well, you
sort of
don't
nip
over
it up
tighten
a bit.
anything. If you start seeing the hose deform like that, you've already,
You've gone too
killed
far,
it.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's a big thing. If you're getting problems after you've done a filter or change the lines, make sure you check that there's no air going through them. You know, put good clamps on.
See, well, I don't normally ever touch them. I can get all my stuff out without pulling it
Yeah,
out,
it's
so-
some vehicles you can, some you can't. You know, it's some of them are a pain in the butt to try and get it out in situ. So you just take the housing off under the fuel lines and take the housing off, and then you get somebody that's got a heavy hand at I find particularly dealerships, they're terrible at it. They use a rattle gun to put a sump plug on. They do the same thing with fuel filters.
Yeah.
You're sitting there cranking the shit out, and I got some strength in it, sitting there going, this thing's going to break in a minute. It's like, why? They don't lube the O-ring when they put it in. You only a bit of diesel on there and put it in. Make sure the surface is clean. You're done.
Yeah.
You don't have to crank it down. The idea of that rubber seal is it's got some compression in it, but it's to hold, not to crank it aside. So it'll seal up there. That's the rubber seal's job. But I think everybody, like if you're doing your own filters and stuff. I mean, you get a good feel of when you undo it. Really, if you've done it up too tight, or if it's too loose. Obviously, if it's too loose, that's something. Every service, just check, make sure it's not too loose. Make sure those hoses are good. Check for leaks. Obviously, if you've got that kind of system, hard to check for vacuum leaks otherwise, but you'll soon know.
Yeah, you end up on the side of the road.
Yeah, but I mean, you guys have got that opportunity to buy quality now. You're not stuck. Brand choice is great. You have got some really good brand choice, and listen to the people that I mean, you're gonna have people that'll tell you their opinion. They're like arseholes. Everyone's got one, but I mean, if you listen to the people that actually develop them for a particular vehicle, or they've had a great response, or even better, if they've had them tested, like a lot of companies are quite happy to put their name. That's the testing. That's what we've done to show that this is the correct filter for that. And look at Direction Plus is a classic example. They've gone through every kind of filter to see which is the optimum for that engine, for the right amount of flow and not restricting it. So stick with that.
Yeah. So that's the one key thing, though, is we want that with the pre-filter is really good water separation.
Absolutely.
That's really key. We need to
keep the crap out before it hits the main filter, obviously.
Yeah.
Keep the water out before it gets into there as well. There are quite a few on the market. Like I said, the best stuff you can buy, it's not cheap, is a fuel monitoring system where it's got an alarm on your dash. You put it. Basically, it's got the bowl. It's got terminals in the bottom. Water gets in that thing. It's like beep 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 up on your dash. You're like, whoa.
And does that go in the factory, like in the factory one,
No,
or is these like?
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
If someone could retrofit them, I'd be pretty stoked. But yeah, they're mainly aftermarket stuff.
Yeah,
There's
okay.
quite a few on the market. They work very, very well, but you're paying big money for them. Like you said, if you were spending months at a time, traveling out west, or particularly through a lot of tropical climate, water crossings, all that sort of stuff, you want to make sure there's no water getting in that fuel. You want that engine protected. I mean, you drop a pump and injectors on a 200 series cruiser, you're not getting out of it for under 10, 15 grand sort of thing.
Yeah, well, and that's the point. I guess the more expensive your vehicle is, then the more you want to protect it.
Absolutely.
Isn't it?
Yeah. And you're going to keep it. Yeah. Well, you're going to look after it like anything,
Yeah.
So clean fuel, and
they're not
that's
going to
where I go.
warrant it if they find fuel in your system.
If they find water in there and they can say, well, there was water in it, we're just going to void your warranty. But but hang on, your fuel filtration should have kept that. Oh no, that was too much water to go through it. Well, hang on, you serviced it. They'll always trying to find a way to get out of a warranty. Absolutely. Otherwise, let's face it, we'll go forward driving. Who gives a crap, and just take it back? Oh, car blew up again. Just fix it for me. That'd be awesome. But they don't. So,
No, I used to work in a car yard, and we sold this ute to a young guy, and he wanted a warranty on his cracked rim. Well, clearly he'd been doing donuts and hit the gutters with all four wheels, but we sold him dodgy tyres. Like.
well,
It's a
this
classic
was
example.
Ipswich, right?
No, it was Ipswich Road.
I won't say where, but yeah, okay.
So yeah, all right. So we talked about good fuel source,
Yep.
good water separation,
Yep.
and keep your tank full if you're not using the vehicle as much as possible.
Yep.
So servicing, we talked about Now, something that my mate said to me is that you want to do your fuel filter because a clogged fuel filter can cause you undue pressure on your fuel pump. Is that?
Well, depending on the system, yeah. Yep.
And in some systems, a clogged filter may allow unfiltered fuel to go through.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, I mean, once they start to suck in on themselves, if you like, they'll get to a certain point. It's going to give.
Yeah.
You know, we're talking about very small particles that'll actually punch through a paper element filter.
Yeah.
You put enough pressure in there, it'll rip through. Now we've created a hole. Now more shit.
And I mean, and these engines those pumps are creating a lot of vacuum.
They do. So and then you got the ones that got the in-tank pumps, so they're pushing it through.
Yeah.
And it's constantly pushing against that filter.
It's
so
a battle on the filter.
It is. And that's what I say to people. It's insurance for your engine, insurance for your fuel system. Hideously expensive, not covered by warranty a lot of the times. It's worth every cent to make sure. I mean, if you're really concerned and your car's under manufacturer's warranty still, find out what the rules are for that particular manufacturer. It's Toyota or Nissan or whatever, and say, if I put a pre-filter in or a post-filter in, how does that affect my warranty?
Yeah.
When you talk to companies like Direction Plus, for example, they're really good because they'll tell you straight up who is covered by their warranty and where you've got to put it. Now, where do you fit it in that system?
And now you mentioned to me when I spoke to you on the phone that some manufacturers actually want you to install it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Look, it's one of those things where I'm surprised that more dealers aren't actually selling pre-filters. Quite frankly, you know, like you see them in a lot of rural areas. They're happy to fit them all the time.
Yeah.
But you know, it's an economic thing. Let's face it. You know, these guys are going to make money off it. Yes. Is it going to make money long term for the company? Hell no. But you've got a happy customer. So it's a balancing act. Always has been.
Yeah. And so, clean hands when you're servicing the vehicle.
Clean area.
Clean everything. Yeah.
You know, you go into some places that people. I'm not talking about workshops. I'm not talking about somebody's garage. You go to some workshops. You look at the bench. You go, Jesus Christ! You got injectors sitting on the bench. Oh, they're in a bucket over there. I'm like, you know, there's water in the bucket, right? It's like, it's amazing. When you're working on anything diesel, you have to have a really clean surface.
Yeah.
I say to anyone, if you're working on something like a filter or anything like that, use an old, pillowcase or something like that. Prefer a light coloured one. Make sure your bench is clean. Put it on that. You know, you're not going to get ingress from dirt and crap, everything, and you can see if there's anything dirty. Keep your hands clean. Make sure the filter housing's clean where you put it all back together, the seals, everything.
It could easily drop like debris in as you're pulling that all apart, so you've got to be careful.
We got a rule when we're doing fuel filters that are screw-on types like that. Before we take them off, we clean them on the external.
Yeah.
I don't want to get more shit back into the thing anyway. So it just makes it easier for everybody, basically.
And as we mentioned, I think we're pretty sure we mentioned it, is you only want to put fuel from the tank through the system, not fill it up with a jerry can or fill it up with your old filter. Like you might as well just not even change the fuel filter if that's the case.
I see so many lazy people have done it over the years, and I just look at them and go, "Who taught you that crap?" You know, like screw off an old filter and go, "Oh, this is going to take ages to prime this back up with the primer handle." So they just get the old fuel and just tip it in there and go, "Oh, I don't have to prime it for a couple of seconds. Good to go." Or like you said, if you go get it out of a container, you know, is it clean fuel? I mean, if you went and got specifically you had that fuel, it's a couple of litres and it's sealed, well, and you know what's in there, well, great. But if you don't just go filling it up and go, she'll be right. Yeah. You're just breaking the whole concept.
Now, something that you've sort of touched on, but we haven't quite touched on this, was my mate said that you need to change your engine oil because it ensures that the fuel pump is correctly lubricated. So you'd mentioned before about clean fuel keeps the carbon out of the engine and all that sort of stuff like that. So is that something that you're familiar with, or you don't think it's
depending on the manufacturer, some are lubricated by internally lubricated, some lubricated by engine oil. So it depends on which system you're talking about.
Yeah, well, he's just talking in general. So
well, I mean,
but it's like anything. So you should be doing, putting clean oil, good oil in your engine, as well as clean fuel.
Well, if we don't have clean fuel, if we've got shit fuel, we don't, combust properly. We get soot because we've got carbon. It's unburnt fuel, right? Under pressure and temperature. That's going back into the oil anyway. It's going to go past the rings. Small amount of it every time. We're going to get that in there. The breathing coming up through the breather, coming back into the intake. So now we're getting that crap, which is the worst oil you can get going back in the intake, because now it's mixed with condensation with moisture and everything as well, and there's a high acidic level.
Yeah.
Right, so that's coming back into our intake. Great work. Carbon the crap everywhere, mix it with the soot. Now we've got diesel putty, like we said before.
Yeah.
More importantly, if we keep the fuel clean, we keep the oil cleaner too.
Yeah.
You know, so oil flush is a big thing too. A lot of people go, "Oh, don't use oil flush." I'm going, if it didn't work, they wouldn't be in business. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, right? The fact is, oil. When I put good oil, we'll touch on that later when we're talking about dimethyl ether. Now, the different kinds of fuel and crap like that, how it burns differently, and the additives they put in it.
Yeah.
If that goes into the oil, which it does, it's going to create basically small particles that are abrasive, right? So if I keep that oil clean and keep the fuel clean, I want to keep the oil clean as well. That shit's coming back in there. We mix it with carbon, which is essentially a softer version of a diamond.
Yeah.
Right? So we've got a very abrasive surface in there. We don't want it in the oil. We don't need it. Turbos blow all the time. Any of you poor buggers ever had anything to do with a I-load, a Hyundai I-load?
Oh, yeah, the van.
Turbo,
thing,
kapooey. Oh, my oil went. Yeah, so I can put another turbo on it. 3 months later, kapooey, it's gone again. Or then the bottom end goes. Because no one actually bothered to put oil flush through these things, clean the pickup, and all the carbon and crap's built up in there, blocks it up, blocks the oil supply to the turbo shits itself.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, but I changed the lines of that. But did you change the oil pickup? It still supplies the turbo. Right?
Yeah.
So the oil's not just for the engine. You've got turbos, you've got pumps, you've got vacuum pumps, everything that uses that engine oil as lubricant. And don't forget, it's also for cooling. So
Yeah.
it's not just lubrication, it's also cooling effect in the engine too.
Yeah, okay. So we covered off of everything. Now, my mate had mentioned this. I might have to... He said, you got to check your water trap for water or opaque.
Opacity.
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 Oh,
So
okay,
it's-
he
yeah.
must have said opaque for must be the
Okay.
abbreviation of it. So,
Okay. Yeah. So you look in there and you can see like a lot of times it's not separated. So you won't have water and then fuel in there. You'll see it as
Yeah.
all milky yellow looking crap. It's got water in it. It's mixed up.
yeah, okay.
You know,
right,
that's what
yeah.
it depends on what's
That
in
would be
there.
a really bad system,
Yeah,
I'm
it is
assuming. If
it
it's,
is
if you've got
bad.
that there,
It's
yeah.
not good. But I mean, if you see this shit, that's what I mean. If you put it on there, you want to be able to see it so you can get it out.
Yeah, okay.
That's why you got a drain on there.
Yeah.
Drain the crap away. Let the fuel do its thing.
Well, literally, I was in Gunnery the other week with a mate. He's got the same Hilux as me. And he's like, he'd only just had the car serviced. And he's like, oh, my water trap light's on. I was like, well, have you let the water out? He's like, oh, the mechanic did it. Anyway, we dumped I did it. I dumped the water out the system. And I'm pretty sure there was water in there. And pumped it back up again. Turned off the water trap light. Good as gold. Away he went.
Yeah.
It's like, what sort of mechanic was that had
Well,
left the water in there, you know? Like,
You find a mechanic that understands how that vehicle works. You know, I mean, there's some vehicles on the road that I'm just going, hell no, it's a Renault. Don't want to know about it.
yeah.
You know, French stuff and me don't work real well together. But I mean, sometimes you're stuck with it. But I'm not going to say I'm proficient at working on these French vehicles like Land Rover. It's like, you know, evil.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say that straight away. It's evil shit. But the way that they're designed, you know, you have to be proficient on that sort of thing. I mean, if you're not proficient on a Hilux or a Patrol or a Navara or a Triton, you really should be if you're going to work on these things.
Especially if you're that way. But
Yeah,
maybe...
most mechanics that work on four-wheel drive should be able to cover those, you know, generic vehicles that we've got a lot of. But you should know that you've got to drain a water trap or at least check it.
yeah.
You know, I mean,
yeah.
as far as I'm concerned, if I get a car come in and I haven't seen the car before, I quote for absolutely everything because I don't know what the last guy's done. Your bill
Yeah,
might
that's
not
right,
come
yeah.
to that, but I'd rather tell you up front.
It's like being a dentist. I've got to have to start with X-ray.
Well, I want to find out what's going on first.
Yeah,
What the
yeah.
last guy did, I don't know. So you got to start somewhere. But I mean, I look at it and go, okay, let's pull the fuel filter out. Well, look at a Hilux. How good's that? Pull it out, you can actually see the filter cartridge, right?
Yeah.
If it's black, which most of mine when you pull them out, guess what that is?
Diesel bug. Yeah.
That's diesel bug because it started in there, and that's where it starts to multiply inside that filter. All right.
Yeah, okay. I don't think mine's ever been black, but I've changed it every
Good.
10,000.
That's
so.
it. But you see ones that aren't changed till the specified schedule. It might be 40,000 Ks. You know,
Yeah.
you pull them out, they're filthy. You know, how's this thing working properly? But at the end of the day, you pull off and go, look, ma'am, mate, your fuel filter's blocked. You can see a picture of it or, you know, show them. You know, the best thing to do is to change that. Like, and say to them, I'm here to educate you. That's my job as a mechanic, to have a customer, we build a rapport, but it's to educate. It's not to rip people off. It's to simply say that this is what I see every day, and I would not like to see that happen to your car. Because this is, and then you say, look at what can happen. And if you guys are doing your own vehicles, you have to know what can happen, how much that's going to cost because you didn't change a filter regularly enough, or you have a water problem and you didn't change the filter often enough.
But the thing is, the things we've talked about are things that you can get your mechanic to install for you, or also you can do it yourself. But which is great. That's why we're having this conversation, because at the end of the day, if you don't know much about cars, you still want to know what you should be doing to your vehicle, or what, because the mechanic's not necessarily going to go, you should have a catch can on your car, or you should have a pre-filter. But if you go there and say, hey, I want to put a pre-filter on there, or you buy it and go, can you put this on the car? They'll put it on there for you.
Yeah, you're touching on a very touchy subject there. I personally won't fit anything anyone brings in my shop.
Oh,
right?
Yeah. No,
it's just
what I'm saying is that
now.
Once you know about it, you go there and go, hey,
what do you recommend?
And then,
or can you buy this and fit this, and how much is it going to cost? I mean, you can weigh up the cost benefits. Obviously, there's always a cost involved. You're paying a professional to do a job, but they're also covering the warranty and the insurance and the workmanship. That's what you're paying for.
And checking for things that you don't know
about.
Like
you're
looking at the hose splitting open.
Hose clamps that have been reused, shit like that. But at the same time, do due process. Go and make sure you get a couple of quotes, and find out what it should cost. That's not hard, but if you're not confident doing it yourself, but don't be one of those people that goes, I bought this part and can you fit it?
You might have got it for the wrong vehicle for starters.
No, not just that. It's like you going, oh, they had a sale on down at the butcher's. It's only $22 a kilo for ribeye. And I'll walk into a restaurant and go, hey, can you cook that for me? How fast are you going to kick me out the friggin' door?
Yeah, pretty fast.
It's true. We hate that in the industry. It's a kick in the guts. It really is. But I mean, if you talk to your mechanic and say, I'm not confident fitting this, but this is what I can buy it for, right?
Yeah, they're probably price matched to some degree.
Well, we have to, because we look at the industry and go, well, we should be getting a discount as tradespeople. It's like a plumber gets piping and shit cheaper than what I can get. I don't want to be a plumber, but that's where you make your margin. Otherwise, we'll all be out of business, and guess what? You're all going back to the dealership.
Yeah, we don't want that.
No one wants that. All right, but this is where we've got to look at it from a perspective of it's a business and it's a transaction you're doing, financial transaction. If you're going to do it yourself, make sure you're educated to do the job properly. And if you don't know, find out from someone that does know.
Well, because the last thing you want to do is pull your car apart and then not be able to drive it away.
Oh no, the worst thing that happens if you pull your car apart, you can't put it back again, you take the mechanic. Because he's going to charge you more now. Oh, you tried doing it yourself, did you? Great, come on in.
All right, so is there anything else that we've not covered that you wanted to talk about?
No, with the fuel stuff, I mean, look, let's face it, it's all about fuel monitoring. Is your fuel clean?
Yep.
Are you buying consistent fuel? Is your car running the right for the fuel you're using? Is the extra value of, that few cents a litre worth it to you? Well, I've backed it up on the dyno.
Yep.
On a brand new car, happened to be mine, because we went through Dieselgate. Right?
Yeah.
Because it's about a 5 to 6% emissions standards variance.
Yeah,
okay. Tried 3 different fuels from 3 different suppliers on the same day. Ran 2 litre containers, so ran 1 litre exactly to the mark. See how many Ks it got, how much horsepower it made, and what were the emissions outputs on it. And there was over 20% difference of emission standards from 3 different kinds of fuel.
Wow.
So that scares the crap out of me. And yes, the BP one that we had, and actually the Caltex was good too, but the BP actually made about 3.5% more power.
Yeah, wow.
100% every time. It was backed up. It was on our hub dyno. It was like backed up again and again and again. It was always consistent.
Well, it's funny because I do use BP fuel most of the time.
Yep.
One mostly out of convenience because there's one pretty close to my house.
You're lucky, yeah.
But the reason I sort of use BP because I've got a VW Turbo Golf.
Yep.
Petrol one. And the mechanic that does my vehicle said the same thing. He goes, BP Ultimate. He said, best fuel on the market. He said, I wouldn't touch anything else. So it's funny that someone from the diesel industry almost telling me the same thing. And I was only using it because they recommended it. I was like, well, if they're doing good unleaded, they're probably doing good diesel
we do
as well.
Petrol and diesel, so we do everything. But I mean, I see the same thing with everybody. I mean, I find with the Caltex, with their premium fuel, and the BP with their premium fuel with the petrol side of it, very, very little difference. You got to remember all of this fuel is made from the same fuel that's coming into this country
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
right? It's whatever blend, whatever they want to add to it and everything else. But realistically, you got to be happy with what you're using. You know, there's a couple other ones that I won't use because I've had noise through diesel. I've had hard starts. I've had poor performance on warm-up. And this is the most integral time where you need the best lubrication and the best...
Yeah, and that's one of the big things my mate says. He's like, the most important part is when you first turn that key.
Absolutely. You know, that first, couple of minutes, that's where we're getting all the wear.
Yeah, when your oil galleries are empty.
Mate, yeah. And, using good quality oil, same thing again. I'm a big fan of using additives to the oil that don't get put into the oil, for that reason. Same with the fuel. The fuel is made to a price to meet a standard. Those standards are set there for a reason, to minimum standard, not maximum, minimum standard. Yeah. The fuel treatments I put in, I can actually see the effect. When I pull injectors out, for example, and flow rate them and test them and do flow rate tests and spray pattern test, I can see ones that have had cleaner puts on them because they still atomise properly. The ones that don't, they're shooting off to the side or they're squirting or the droplets are too big. You can actually see this sort of stuff all the time.
Yeah.
You have clean fuel, it burns better, you get better fuel economy, you make more power, you have less crap going back in there. It's a very simple thing to understand, but you must stick to it.
Well, it's a full system end to end, like going around. So.
Yeah.
So one thing you mentioned to me, so you use Bursons. You're a big advocate of them. You essentially do training for them and all that sort of stuff like that. Now, one thing you told me about earlier was they have a loyalty system, which is Burson's Garage.
Burson Garage, yeah.
And you can sign up at
go to Burson store, yeah. Well, look at it like this. I've spent my whole life building Redline business that I have after I got out of the army and that, and I wanted this as my family and everything. This is my business. You don't want someone screwing with your business or who you work for, right? But the fact is, these guys support us, right? Yep. But they don't want you coming in there and going, I want that part and I want it for the same price my mate bought it because he's a mechanic. Well, hang on. I'm the one that's got the workshop. I'm the one that pays the insurance and the rent and the wages and everything else.
Yeah.
I take the risk. I should be able to be rewarded by buying my parts in bulk because I buy a lot of parts. I want those at a price that I can pass on.
Well, even if they're not buying them in bulk, they're buying them in mass. So they might only be buying one of this filter, one of that filter. But they're buying a lot of filters.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas I might come along and buy one filter once every 6 months.
Yeah, well, we get ours filled every week. Yeah. And then we get our bulk oil filled every 2 weeks or 3 weeks, Yeah. So the fact is I get that at a better rate because I'm a tradesman and that's my industry. They don't want people coming in there and getting stuff for trade, right? Because you get it at trade rate. Mechanic doesn't want to know you for a start, but you're destroying his business
because those people will try and buy that stuff and take it to the mechanic.
And the first thing they do is take the mechanic, go, can you fit this? And they go, there's the door. We might as well shut the door. It's simple as that. You guys are working on your own vehicles. You want to buy the parts at the right price. You don't get ripped off, so shop around. Absolutely.
And because I mentioned this to you before, there's certain retailers I don't want to support because
who would that be?
Like your super cheap auto, because for example, they're on the board of Madeline Foundation, which is anti-gun to the max.
Yep.
So why would I want to go and spend all my dollars down at super cheap? That is essentially one of the board members is anti-gun. Yeah. Effectively.
Well, not only
so
that,
I need alternatives.
Have a look at who owns them as a group. That money doesn't stay here. This is the biggest problem with, we all talk about being patriotic and supporting our country and supporting a local business.
Yeah.
These companies are not supporting Australian industry. They employ our people, sure, but all their money goes overseas.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay,
so you have a look at that, who owns the group of those, like Bapcor Burson. I'm a big fan of Burson. I've worked with them a long time. They support our industry. They're very, very protective of our industry. And it started off very small, it's grown. The thing is, they started this thing called Burson Garage. And what it is, if you're an enthusiast or a do-it-yourselfer, you go down to Burson and say, I'd like to join the Burson Garage program. They're going to give you a loyalty card, right? But that guarantees you're going to get a better price than retail.
Yeah.
All right? It's not going to be a trade price.
Of course not.
No,
yeah.
But the idea is you're not going to the trade. You're not going to go buy a part and then get me to fit it.
Yeah,
you're going to fit it yourself.
This is specifically for people that are going to work on a vehicle themselves. They
Absolutely,
know that.
And they realise that there's a big market of do-it-yourself. And let's face it, there's a lot of guys out there that, quite frankly, should be mechanics. They're probably better than a lot of mechanics in the industry. But because they're passionate about what they do, they want to learn, and they know that specific vehicle very, very well.
Yeah.
So you know your own vehicle, right?
Yeah,
You're going to work on your own vehicle. You've done your research.
I can tell you now, I know for a fact that I got a 12 mil head there. I got a 14 mil head there. That's a M8. That's a M10 because the M8 was stripped out. So I put a.
But you know you won't do that again.
To get that front bash plate off, you need 4 spanners.
Oh wow.
Anyway, that's a whole other story. Yeah.
Yep. But look, realistically, it's a good program, and it supports Australian industry for a start.
Yeah.
But more importantly, it's going to give you that consistent discount all the time. It's not like, oh, show us your membership here and we'll give you 10% or 20% off there and do this. And like, you know what? I'll walk in there and go, there's a card. I know you. You do it yourselfer. Is there anything you need? They're going to give you the right parts for what you need. And do your homework as well. Make sure they are the right parts before you order them. Don't blame the poor young bastard behind the counter that, you know, he's looking at you going, I don't know what you're talking about. We don't sell a lot of those. Find out what it is first, you know.
Yeah.
And that will guide you a long way. And look, there's always going to be people to help you along the way. If you're, do it yourselfer, you are not a threat to the industry. You're doing it yourself.
You're gonna do it yourself anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So check that out. It's a good thing, and they're more than happy though too. If you're going in there as a do-it-yourselfer and they know you're enthusiast, you're doing it yourself. If you ask for information on something like a fuel filtration system, they go, oh, here's the guy's number from Direction Plus, or we have this thing here. You can talk to them or have a look at this information. They're more than happy to give it to you. Absolutely.
Yeah, awesome. Well, that's what we want, because that's one of the biggest problems is someone like, I am quite keen on doing the stuff myself. And it's not just out of budget. I enjoy working on the vehicle. And sometimes I need that information because sometimes it's not available on the website or whatever. So
and sometimes you go onto forums and.
This is where you get confused. What's a pre-filter, post-filter? You should have 2 microns. Or
you won't find a lot of high-end mechanics on forums for retail because we don't want to give all that information away for free anyway. That's what we got a workshop for, and that's why we're professionals in our trade. But you find someone that's cluey enough and that's done it before, knows the history on it, and it has the right information. It's very hard to find someone like that that's not going to charge you for it.
Yeah.
But this is why you got car clubs. This is why you guys have done this stuff before and talk amongst each other, what works, what doesn't, that sort of stuff. But then you're going to get forums that just, like you said, confuse the hell out of everyone. We love forums. We think forums are awesome because at the end of the day, we end up with a work a lot of the times because people get in over their head and they said, but this guy on a forum said this. Oh, there's another $50.
Keyboard mechanics.
Oh, mate, it's just awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so thanks very much for coming down, Dan. Really appreciate it. But
no worries.
You want to offer the viewers a bit of a giveaway?
All right. Well, we've talked about the catch cans a bit. We've talked about the pre-filter with the fuel filtration. I reckon we run a comp.
Yep.
What do you reckon? Well, look, if you're going to support Australian businesses and industry, I reckon we could turn around and support these guys a bit. So, how about go join Burson Garage. If you're going to do this stuff yourself, you do it yourself. Go join Burson Garage. Go down and see your local Burson store. Sign up. Get the proof to what is the card or registration.
Yeah. So once you get your membership number, email me your membership number, and the first 50 that email me your membership number, and one person will win
a Direction Plus catch can.
Yep. And that's the same one I got on my
vehicle. That's right.
Yep.
That's it. Yeah. And the second person will win a pre-filter for their fuel system for the diesel.
Yeah, awesome. And will that be a Direction Plus one as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah, awesome. So, which is the same one I got on my vehicle as well. So,
have you got that one on there too, the fuel one?
I've got Direction Plus on both of the things.
Perfect.
So, I think one's the ProVent is the one.
That's correct.
And I think it's 100 series ProVent on one, and then they've got the fuel manager on the
other side.
On the thing.
Cool.
So,
all right.
Well, that's fantastic. Thanks very much, Dan. Really appreciate it. And I hope you guys got some educational information. And it's really interesting to see the different things, and it was great to meet Dan, and he's so enthusiastic and passionate about these things, and certainly opened my eyes about the benefits of the things that I've done in my vehicle above and beyond what I actually thought I was getting out of it.
Yeah.
So I really am a serious advocate for protecting my engine because I want to keep it for a long time because I'm poor and can't afford to replace it.
Protect your assets. That's it. Yep.
So I like to say when I close out, I go, get them big ballers, have fun, get in the sun. What do you want to say on your...
Mate, rack 'em, whack 'em, stack 'em and pack 'em.
All right, guys. Till next time. Catch
ya.
us later.
Want more Hunt Shoot Off-Road action? Come join the HSO crew at Facebook on www.facebook.com/group/HSO crew, where we go into further detail on up-and-coming shows, promotions, competitions, and general hunting, shooting, and off-road banter. We need your help to keep the show racking the rounds. Head over to Patreon and throw some coin our way so we can continue to grow and improve the show and give you guys access and input to the show at patreon.com/huntshootoffroad. Alternatively, head over to the store at www.huntshootoffroad.com/shop and grab a piece of merch such as a mug or this fantastic Brass Goblin tee. Okay guys, we'll see you on the next one. We've got some fantastic shows coming up in the near future, and catch us later.